accidents are terrifying experiences. You're hurt, and you need someone on your side who understands. Call the Advocates. They have over 20 years' experience with accident cases and have recovered settlements for hundreds of other motorcyclists. They can handle the medical bills and deal with the insurance company so you can focus on recovering and getting back on your bike. The Advocates are my motorcycle attorneys.
You deserve clear, risk-free advice to help get you back on your feet. You deserve an advocate.
This is the Monty Show, the truth in sports talk streaming. When you want unbiased opinions about your favorite team without the spin, all you have to do is find the Monty Show, streaming live and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube. And now, here's Monty.
Hey, the Monty Show, live on your YouTube machine. Pleasure to be back with you. Yes, as always, presented by the Advocates, your leading injury attorneys. Anytime you have an issue, man, you leave your house on a motorcycle, you have to know that you are taking your life quite literally in your hands. It's not a matter of if, but when you have an accident with your motorcycle. You guys both know the same thing that I know. People in cars don't respect the space of people on motorcycles. 4 wheels are bigger than 2. If you've been in an accident, you need to get to the Advocates, theadvocates.com, where you never pay a penny to talk to an attorney live online 24/7, 365. You can do that right at theadvocates.com. And the thing I love about the Advocates is they give you peace of mind. Let them take all the paperwork. Let them take all the process. You just get back to the best version of yourself at theadvocates.com. Fresh off of Delta Airlines this weekend, we will talk about that little fiasco. Anything else non-sports going on that we would, that we need to get to, or I don't think there's anything else going on.
No, I don't think so, dude. It's been a pretty dry cycle, pretty quiet.
Nothing happening.
Not much to look forward to, or talk about in the past. So everything's good.
Everything's copacetic, it feels like. So we'll talk about all that nonsense. And what a crazy weekend. Is this maybe one of the oddest weekends we have ever had in the history of our country? So many things, from famous people dying, airline situations, this CrowdStrike bullshit, the election, and Uncle Joe walking away. And this was one of the craziest news weekends of the year.
Yeah,
certainly. And maybe one of the craziest weekends I think we've ever had in this country. Maybe ever. Who's first in this morning? Of course, it's Mountain Mama. Lauri Markkanen rumored to be traded to the Big 12. I heard that. Yep. Pete Forte, hello. OG Gary. Dude. He says, we've heard this before. They're not leaving. It's not feasible. And boom, we've never heard this before with the ACC. And I think this is a common mistake that people make. People compare what we've heard about other teams leaving other conferences, and they're like, oh, yeah, Florida State and Clemson are gone. And again, I just point out what happened in the Pac-12, what happened in the Big 12, nothing similar, not remotely close to what's going on in the ACC. And I think this is a popular fan sentiment when it comes to Florida State and when it comes to what's happening in the ACC. And I think it's very important that we point that out, because as we've talked about for months on this show, and you're going to hear from Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC, in a moment, this situation with the ACC, it's going to be awfully difficult for Florida State and Clemson to get an outcome that they would describe as desirable, a positive outcome, a winning outcome, because simply put, there is no mechanism outside of paying $500 million or more for Florida State and Clemson to leave the ACC. And I think Jim Phillips, who's standing on business in the ACC, is making that very clear. This is not the Pac-12 where the grant of rights was coming to an end. This is not the Big 12 where the grant of rights was coming to an end. This is the ACC where the grant of rights will never end. It's not like in the history of man. The grant of rights in the ACC will outlast us all, or at least that's what it feels like. And I thought it was very interesting that Jim Phillips made the point to go out of his way to say exactly what we've said on this show, that Florida State and Clemson not only signed the grant of rights once, but twice.
As I turn my attention to the year ahead, I must directly address the ongoing disputes with two of our members about the contracts they each signed twice and whether they will honor those agreements. With multiple ongoing legal cases, there are limits to what I can say, but I can state that we will fight to protect the ACC and our members for as long as it takes. We are confident in this league and that it will remain a premier conference in college athletics for the long-term future.
I mean, first of all, I thought he said they signed it twice.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we don't know what we're talking about. I mean, we don't have we don't know anything. We don't have sources. We don't know anything. But we've only pointed it out a million freaking times on this show that you're not going to get away, whether it's in the court of law or the court of public opinion, from the fact that you signed it not once but twice, and
without duress.
And I just don't know. Like I'm telling you, the ACC has their ducks in a row. Jim doesn't have to sit up there and be nervous about the conference melting down because Florida State and Clemson have nowhere to go. They don't have a way out. Even if you had a way out, I'm not sure that you'd have, a smooth path, an easy path to get anywhere else. As we've seen, people have commented on the fact that Florida State is damaged goods, if you will.
Well, and depending on how much you believe what Greg Sankey said at SEC Media Days, I agree. I think people like to romanticize, the destruction of the Pac-12, the Big 12, the ACC. I think people love to romanticize that. But again, I just ask you, if you are a lawyer and you are defending Florida State, how do you get away from the fact that they signed that grant of rights not once but twice, and they did it knowingly and willingly, which is why I also think that's not their argument in court. Their argument in court is that there is somehow some nefarious dealings between the ACC and ESPN that merit and warrant the meltdown of the grant of rights, the invalidation of the grant of rights, that adding SMU, Cal, and Stanford, Calford, to the conference was a breach of fiduciary responsibilities. Again. But notice they're not saying, well, we didn't know what we were signing. Or, oh, well, they're not arguing the grant of rights. They've tried for, and it depends on who you ask, but a minimum of 5 years to find a way out of it.
Right.
They've spent over $100 million in legal fees alone trying to find a way to get out of it. So, again, if there was a mechanism in place, and I know you're probably tired of hearing me say this, they would be out of it already. So I ask you point blank, what's the mechanism to get Florida State and Clemson out of it? There's one. It's $500 million. The only other way they're getting out of this is if a judge somehow finds and rules in their favor. And we should at some point, I would think in the next 10 days, begin to understand what is in writing between the ACC and ESPN. Because if we don't, and if Florida State does not come out and make an argument that somehow that document or that agreement is flawed and violates the grant of rights and violates a fiduciary responsibility and violates contract law, because that's the only way that they're winning this case, is if there's a magic bullet in the contract between ESPN and the ACC. And I know I say this all the time, but I'm going to say it again. Understand that that contract between ESPN and the ACC is completely different than the grant of rights. Those are two separate agreements between two different entities. Between the members of the ACC and the ACC conference, that's the grant of rights. Between the ACC and ESPN, that's the TV contract. And Florida State just got a judge's order to see an unredacted copy of the TV contract between ESPN and the ACC. And so they have a period of time to review that contract and make an argument that it's invalid. It better be sooner than later, because if there is something in that deal that invalidates that contract, it's going to stand out in big, bold letters. It's not going to be something that you're going to have to find in the fine print. In contract law, and you go back and you look at any contract dispute, 9 out of 10 times, it is in big, bold, obvious terms. This is a violation. This is wrong. This is grounds to get out of it. And usually when that happens, it's almost immediate. So I also go back to what I've argued previously and what I've been told by sources close to that situation, which is we'd have known this by now because the ACC and ESPN would have settled with Florida State and Clemson. They would never have given them access to an unredacted copy of that contract because I think that's exactly what Florida State and Clemson thought they wanted. And I actually think that it is a honeypot. I think that that is exactly what the ACC wanted Florida State and Clemson to get, an unredacted copy of that contract so that they would fall into that trap of there's nothing here. Because you can't tell me that the ACC fought that court order. You can't tell me that the ACC, who all along, I remind you, has said, hey, just come to our headquarters. Well, you're free to look at the contract. You're free to look at the grant of rights. It's all right here. You just can't take it off campus of the ACC headquarters, and you can't make copies of it, and you cannot send it out electronically. And so Florida State automatically said, well, you're hiding things. Okay, get a court order, and we'll send it to you. Well, now they got a court order, and they sent it to them, and we have not heard hide nor hair. And every day that goes by, and I believe the window is past now that Florida State and its legal team has that document. Every day that goes by now, you got to wonder if there's something at all in that document.
Well, and at what point do you run out of runway here? I mean, at what point do you get to a place where you say, hey, yeah, we're tired of spending hundreds of millions of dollars on legal fees and, just burning this hole in our financial pocket.
Yeah.
Especially when we look around, the landscape of college football and there's all these other conversations happening, like, all the stuff that we talked about last week with Sankey and the Super League and, private money and where the CFP is going. And, we're in a time when as a Power 4 conference school, you really got to manage your money well. You really got to make sure that not only do you have all your bills paid, if you will, but you have future revenue coming in, that you have a plan to continue to raise that revenue and continue to keep your school on strong financial footing. And it always amazes me that Florida State seemingly doesn't worry about that. Seemingly there is no restriction to how much money you'll spend on legal fees and how much money you're willing to put into what can only be described as a black hole of endless spending. I mean, that's what you're talking about. You have not yet found a way to win this situation that you're in, that you, I might add, caused. You're the one who forced this issue. And now you're starting to see that, yeah, maybe there's not a way out of this thing. We did sign a contract, and now our feet are going to be held to the fire on it. And it is what it is. Sometimes you don't win. Like, they're not going to win here. So I'm just curious, what's next? Is it just a thing where this just kind of slowly but surely fades into the background and people just stop talking about it, and that's kind of our answer? Or is there some type of definitive ruling that we get that kind of puts it to bed, and then Florida State's got to figure out what's next? Like, and by the way, for Clemson, I don't know. Like, I feel like we never hear from Clemson on this stuff. I feel like Clemson just signed on to this and was like, yeah, we'll just go along for the ride, and you guys can do what you want to do. I mean, you can't tell me if people view Florida State as damaged goods that Clemson's not at least somewhat being hurt by the image of being involved.
But what is Clemson going to say? Clemson doesn't win anymore on the football field. Dabo, I think there's almost a certainty that Dabo's reputation is damaged as a winner. And I don't know what leverage Clemson has. If you think about the comparison to Clemson and Florida State, on the surface, well, you'd much rather have Florida State. Or would you? Because you get into these Greg Sankey comments last week, and you get into people telling us for over a year now that they're trouble. And you go back to Bobby Bowden talking about how they took the ACC route because they didn't want to have to fight through the SEC and it was going to be easier to win. What is it about Florida State that makes them a better partner than Clemson or a more attractive brand than Clemson? Right now, I would say not much. I don't think either one of them has a clear path to the SEC or the Big Ten. I don't see that. And it's why I continue to tell you there was never going to be notice given that they were leaving the conference at ACC Media Days. And everybody was, and again, I tell you to go back and look at the way people tweeted about this and that Clemson and Florida State are leaving. And well, why are they deleting those tweets now? Why do you not see those people all over the hey, we told you? Because there was never a way for them to make that announcement.
Oh.
So if we're sitting here and we're talking about the reality of this situation and what the end game in the ACC looks like, it's one of two things. A judge rules in favor of Florida State, which I don't think we have any idea where that stands because we really haven't gotten even a step into this process in a courtroom yet. Or they pay their $500 million to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to go private money, are you really going to take your private money and buy your way out of a conference not knowing if you have a home? I mean, hell, if you're private money, are you investing in Florida State after what Greg Sankey said on 1010XL in Jacksonville last week?
So you take Georgia just because it's easy to remember. Within the league, they play at Ole Miss, finished with a win over Penn State, had 2 losses last year to Georgia and to Alabama. They play at Alabama, and they play at Texas. This is Georgia.
Right.
I mean, who's got 3 games like that on their schedule?
Yeah.
And they play Florida, too. Yeah. Don't forget that.
Well, no, that's right. I'm going. The neutral site, but I'm going to away.
Yeah.
And then they open with Clemson.
Right.
They finish with Georgia Tech, and there's a lot in between. How are you evaluating that against other schedules?
Yeah.
That could be think last year, that was one of the 4 best teams, period.
And there's no question.
There's people in your listening audience that say, well, there it goes again.
Yeah.
We didn't stomp our feet.
Right,
we didn't, fly banners over places. That was one of the 4 best teams. They lost 1 game in 2 years. Bad second half, second quarter, third quarter. And in the future, if they're 9-3 compared to a 10-2 or 11-1, the standard is not 10-2 or 11-1. It's the best teams.
Well, what that
Savage.
I mean, it is as simple as you can put it. That Florida State is damaged goods. So, okay, you get private money, you buy your way out of the ACC grant of rights, you get your broadcast rights back to do what with them? I don't know either, because does a scheduling alliance with the Big 12, which is the hot rumor, does that put you in a position or a better position to make the college football playoff than you are in the ACC, where you are the top dog by far, not close?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't put you in a better position to make money.
But that's ultimately how you make your money now.
Yeah,
is you got to go to the college football playoff. I just don't see, in this ever-changing face of college football, what does winning look like now for Florida State? Because if they win this lawsuit and they get out of the ACC, let's say, I still believe in my heart of hearts, from what I've been told, that the SEC would take Florida State. I understand Greg Sankey putting his tail feather up and we didn't stomp our feet or fly banner. Totally get it. You're turning down a brand like Florida State in the SEC. You're turning down a chance to absolutely own the state of Florida with the 2 best football brands in that state, Florida and Florida State.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. You obviously,
come on.
Obviously for the SEC, there's a lot of value there. I also think there's a lot of value for the Big Ten, but I think the Big Ten would be a much better fit for Clemson than it would be for Florida State. And the problem is that I think what a lot of people who were pushing the scheduling alliance situation recently, what they don't want to tell you is that the only way that these 2 schools are getting to a different conference is at the end of this grant of rights, or if there's major change throughout all of college football with the Super League situation and how that impacts everything. So, because I do think there's still some unknown around, not whether or not we're going to get one, but more like, hey, are we still going to have 4 conferences, or are those 4 conferences going to kind of mold together, like what that's going to look like? So I think if we found ourselves in a spot where, as part of the Super League, we went to, as Kyle Whittingham said, like 2 super conferences basically that kind of just played each other, and it was that NFL minor league model, as he called it, then at that point, I think Florida State has some options, right? I mean, obviously now we're having a different conversation. So I think it's only one of those 2 situations that leads to these 2 schools getting out of their conference. And I'm still asking the question, much like you were, why would you want to leave right now? I mean, I've never heard either of these 2 say, yeah, you know what? Like, our grant of rights may be cumbersome in timeline, but it is this much money every single year for like 10 years. And then we could go out and build on top of that. So it just amazes me, like, how different the perspective is. This is the classic situation of, we're going to cry about what we don't have instead of appreciate what we do have. And that's what I think their biggest problem is.
I don't even think it's appreciate what you have. Understand the fucking market, bro. Understand that we are heading to a Super League, right? And to your point on Kyle Whittingham, 365 Sports, I think, got the most important sound bites out of Big 12 Media Day was Kyle Whittingham confirming everything that I've ever said, and the fact that we're a size 15 shoe.
So much change already, and there's more on the horizon. I can tell you that. We're not done. I think it's ultimately going to get to 2 super conferences and their own playoff system, and probably break away from the NC2A, have a commissioner and all. An NFL minor league model, I think, is where we're heading in that regard.
See, what happened was...
I mean, I don't know where you've ever heard that before. Come on.
And if you're Florida State, because they know it the same that Witt knows it, they know that a super conference is coming. An NFL model for college football is coming. We are in a situation now where, as we've told you, the NCAA isn't going to exist at the top tier of college football, right? We've talked about that for months on this show, that you are going to have a different set of rules. Last week, what did we get? Oh, yeah, hey, the G5 are fucked. We're out. They're not going to play at the top level of college football because they don't have the money to compete, which is exactly right. And if Florida State, do you understand? You're never making yourself whole now with how much in legal fees you reportedly spent.
Yeah.
Do you understand how much money the State School of Florida has spent in legal fees because their quarterback got hurt last year? Let that sink in. How much money just from that point forward has the state of Florida, from, who was it? The Attorney General of Florida, Ron DeSanctimonious, spending $1 million. Like, do you understand how much money they have spent on this that they will never realize in return? And then take the legal fees that you spent trying to get out of the grant of rights. And ask yourself, how does the State School of Florida ever become whole from this?
Yeah, you don't. You're right. They don't. They don't. And again, I think that they, as a school, shouldn't be asking how they get whole. They should be asking, hey, how close are we to getting into trouble financially because of how much we've spent on this? And look, I'm not doubting, your donors and how much money is around that program. There's no question that that's a storied, institution. Florida State's football program is, has history, no question about it. But there is a limitation to everything, right? The old saying of a man's got to know his limitations. Florida State's got to know their limitations and understand, hey, at what point are we just throwing bad money after bad money? And I don't know when that's going to be, because it seems like they're still very much in the heat of this thing emotionally.
Yes.
And it feels like they're still very much like just, hey, full steam ahead, money, legal fees, find us a way out. And I think the best point that we've consistently made is, okay, let's say you do get out. Then what? Then what?
Because the ACC outside of football is a really strong league. I mean, well documented, the basketball programs in that league, the brands in that league. And I think when you look at the money that is going to continue to be poured into college basketball, because now it's a must-have, right? You look at this G5 depression where you simply have a bunch of basketball brands that play football. The majority of the G5, in my opinion, there are a lot of those brands that are football universities or basketball universities who football is an afterthought. Their breadwinner is basketball. You look at, and you don't even have to go past Gonzaga to see that, UConn to see that, how much you're subsidizing football at UConn, right? Like, those are the universities where you say to yourself, college basketball is what keeps us in business. Well, in the game that we're talking about, the top tier of college football is what keeps college basketball in business. And if you're Florida State, do you really want out of the ACC when you have a quality basketball program? They have a quality basketball program.
Yeah.
And I just continue to make the argument, this is a football problem. And Florida State's perspective is whacked here because you are not, what you are trying to do is dissolve the ACC, which is one of the stupidest business decisions you will ever make. You're not good enough in basketball to win your own league, in my opinion. Stay in the ACC for every sport except football. That should be your plan. Oh, that's right. That's everybody's plan because that's where college sports is going.
Yeah.
You don't want to melt down your basketball relationship with Notre Dame. You don't want to melt down your baseball, your stick and ball sports. You don't want to melt down your track and field relationships. You're in a good place in the ACC. Just chill out, play football, and let the eventuality fix your situation. Stop spending tens of millions of dollars on legal fees and wasting taxpayer dollars so that Ron DeSantis can give you $1 million to fight. And we want access to every communicate. Fuck off. You spend $1 million to look at people's emails who were like, okay, come get them. Sue us. Come get us. You have your $1 million war chest. Come. And what has come of that?
A lot of spending.
What has come of that? Nothing has come of that. Not a thing. Because you signed on to the process. You bought into the system. It's just, I'm telling you now, all this is a dog and pony show.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it's a bad look for Florida State. I mean,
that's it.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I just go back to Greg Sankey. Georgia didn't get in. And they didn't whine and complain and cry and bitch and moan. They didn't go to court. They didn't get their governor involved and their Secretary of State or Attorney General because they're going to be back there next year. You know it, and I know it. Do I know that about Florida State? I kind of lean that way because I think that what they're doing in Tallahassee, they have a great program. They have a great program. And all this other nonsense does is diminish that.
Yeah, I think
that's
the I think the other thing though too, like the way I see it for Florida State is you're not as proven of a college football playoff commodity as Georgia is or any of these other guys who are in it every year. I mean, that I also think is hurting Florida State. This would have been, had Jordan Travis not gotten hurt, this would have been your first appearance in a minute in the college football playoff. And I think that the problem is that even with, and again, my opinion, disagree if you like, even with a healthy Jordan Travis, I still think you lose to Georgia. I still think Georgia's a better team. I still think Georgia was more deserving based on the schedule they played and the players they had and the kind of team they had. So that's my opinion. Obviously, Florida State fans going to tell you differently, but I don't see a Florida State team that struggles to beat Clemson in league games coming out here on the same football field as Georgia and matching not only their physicality, but their ability on the football field. You're talking about Georgia and Alabama before this year essentially being minor league NFL teams. That's the kind of talent they had.
Well, and I look at Florida State with Roydell Williams coming in and DJ Uiagalelei coming in and Malik Benson coming in. Like, this offense is going to put points up. And I don't know. I guess we could debate who DJ Uiagalelei is as a quarterback.
Well, there's no debating it's his best option to win, or his best opportunity to win in his college career so far.
I would agree with that. And I mean, obviously, you're as good as Florida State was last year. You're going to have some dudes to replace, but Devontae Brown, like you look at their transfer portal activity, Marvin Jones on the end. I mean, you've got talent. That's who this coaching staff is now.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem too. Like, I actually like what Norvell is doing.
Yes.
I actually think he's doing a phenomenal job, and it's really a shame because they're so wrapped up in all this stuff. And I know obviously it's not Mike himself doing all this, but the problem is that Mike didn't really have a choice. Like, you didn't get in, you did everything that you could, you suffered an untimely injury to your quarterback, and now all of a sudden your program is in this tough spot. And yeah, if you thought there was pressure to win last year, hey, Mike, in case you hadn't noticed, you might want to win this year. You might want to get to the Final Four, if you will, in the college football playoff this year to answer all those questions. Because I got news for Florida State fan. If you get in as like a 12 seed or a 10 seed and you lose that first game after all that talent came in and all the work Mike did in the portal and recruiting and everything, that's going to be a really bad look for your program. This is the year where you have to go out and you have to say, yeah, we are just as good, if not better than all those SEC guys. And I'm guessing, just to guess, there's going to be an opportunity for Florida State to go up against one of the better Big Ten teams in the playoff, assuming they make it. So I'm just saying, this is the year where you need to go out and win those games and show people who you actually are.
Can you believe you have to replace your quarterback? So you go and get DJ Uiagalelei, great pickup. And then, toss him a bone and get Roydell Williams from Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, you did what you needed to do.
Yeah,
There's no question.
To your point, I think Mike Norvell probably is one of those under-the-radar coaches just because he doesn't have a big personality. You don't hear from him a lot. You hear from him on Saturday nights after they've won. And that's the sad thing about Florida State, is they're winning games. Like the Jimbo BS, like all that's gone. Like Mike Norvell has brought prosperity to Tallahassee, but we don't know about it because all we're talking about is lawsuits.
Yes.
So, facts. Anyway, all right, let's get your comments in here. As usual, the comment section is presented by our good friends at Prize Picks. Had a good weekend. Had a very good weekend on Prize Picks. I would like to thank Xander Schauffele for shooting the lights out on Sunday, winning good old Uncle Monty $56.25. Hell yeah, Xander.
Yeah.
Better dude than Xander Schauffele in golf right now? Probably not. He is such a good dude. He's won 2 majors. I love it. But I also love Prize Picks because you can play golf. You can play baseball. Football's coming. We are, 40-something days away from week 1.
August 1 is your first preseason game.
I am so stoked that Aaron Rodgers is going to fail with the Jets. Cannot wait to see that happen. That the Chicago Bears, Chicago, they're raving about my guy, Caleb. Jim Romadunze, they're raving about him.
Are you going to on Sundays? Because it used to be that you would just
Shut
hang
up.
the flag.
Don't do
on
it.
Sundays, are you going to hang the flag, wear the jersey, and paint the nails?
What are you, JD Vance now?
Yeah, like, what are we doing?
Oh, yeah, Caleb Williams was a DEI draft pick. Come on, man. I'm excited about the Bears. I can't wait for football to get back. I can't wait for college football on Prize Picks is amazing. It is truly one of the most enjoyable parts about college football is Prize Picks. And all it really is Roydell Williams, 50.5 yards, more or less. That's your only proposition that you have to pay, consider. I lost my train of thought. That is the only thing that you have to decide. Is he going to have 51 yards or is he going to have 50 yards? More or less. That's it. Here's the blueprint. And I tell you this all the time.
Yes.
3 picks. Play it on flex, because the great thing about daily fantasy at prizepicks.com is you only need to pick 2 out of 3 winners to get paid at Prize Picks. It's that simple. Download the app, make a deposit, use the promo code Monty to get 100% deposit matching. That means you put in $10, they'll give you 10 more at Prize Picks. Download the app, use the promo code Monty. Let's get Luke Fletcher, who gives us 10, 20, and then $30
So who are
to
you,
say.
Florida State?
Poor coaching decisions, not ACC, kept Florida State out of the college football playoff. The quarterback should not have been playing when the game that he got hurt. It's a very good take.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people overlook that. If Jordan Travis was healthy, they would have been in.
100%.
And we can sue, and it's what we've talked about all election cycle, all of life, all of sports. Just because you do not like the rules does not mean they don't apply to you. And the best part is it's in the rules of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. They can consider injury when determining who gets into the college football playoff and who does not. And when you lose your starting quarterback and you have no depth or experience behind him, and again, they're in that spot this year. When you look at DJ Uiagalelei at quarterback, you only have 3 freshmen behind him. Now, granted, Brock Glenn is a redshirt freshman, so he's been in the program, but no measurable playing time.
Right.
You have 0 depth behind DJ Uiagalelei. You need him to stay healthy.
Ride or die.
It's as simple as it can be. So I think that's you know what, Luke, and I know that you're an ACC guy. Now the ACC's better in basketball, Monty. Look, Morty, I don't want to hear about it, Marty. It's a Big 12. You are a huge ACC guy.
And by the way, something to watch out for this season, right? Did Mike learn his lesson? Will we see DJ get pulled later in games when they're up by 20?
Because they're going to be up 76-0 quite often.
Yeah, I mean, you know that, and again, I don't know their schedule off the top of my head, but you know that there's going to be games where they're going to be up by, you're going to have 8-9 minutes left in the third, and you're going to be up 27 points. You're going to be up 20 points. The game will have been decided.
Are you sure?
So when you play everyone's All-American from Dallas, SMU,
on September 28th in Dallas, because it says Dallas on the SMU
it says Dallas
uniform.
on their shirt, on the jersey and stuff. When you're beating the hell out of them, are you going to take DJ out and get your backup some time?
You have one game of consequence on your schedule, in my opinion. And it is November 9th in South Bend, Indiana, against the Golden Domers of Notre Dame. Here's your schedule. Georgia Tech, Boston College, Memphis, and Cal. You finally leave home to head to Dallas to take on SMU. Then you're home for Clemson. Bye week at Duke.
Duke is Duke.
At Miami. That Miami game's going to be tough. It's Miami.
Yeah.
And Miami's really deep this year. I was reading through the book this past weekend. Miami's really deep. I think Mario Cristobal, this is clearly his best roster there, but this might be their deepest roster in some time at Miami. North Carolina, at Notre Dame, Charleston Southern, and then will Billy Napier still have his job on November 30th when he comes to Tallahassee?
No.
That's a 1-loss schedule.
Yeah.
Because I'm giving you the Miami game. That Notre Dame game is going to be tough. It's going to be cold. It's November. Knock on wood. I don't want to get excited because my guy can't count past 10. Notre Dame looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So, and Notre Dame's schedule, again, I'm just saying, Notre Dame is going to, by November 9th, Notre Dame will be fairly well tested because they play Northern Illinois in week 2.
Man, wow, dude.
They're at look at Notre Dame's schedule. At A&M, Northern Illinois at Purdue, Miami of Ohio, Louisville, Stanford, Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State, Virginia, Army, and USC.
Stay hard.
At the Coliseum. That's a 2-loss schedule for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They'll be top 12. They're going to the college football playoff.
Yep.
It's as simple as that.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Who else is in? Where are you guys at today? Jeremy Severe, hello. Ironically, they might spend more money on legal fees to get out of the contract instead of paying the $500 million up front. I talked to a guy who said he believes it is just short of $100 million in legal fees in total.
Dude, what are we doing?
Oak State James. I saw a video of a guy at Buc-ee's chopping up some brisket. I think I sent you that video.
You did.
Buc-ee's is on another level. What Florida State and Clemson should do is say, quote, let's play 10 league games and see if ESPN will give us more money. It would take the contract. It would make the contract worth more. Yeah, maybe. Tanner Plummer. All right, we get it. The ACC is sticking together. Let's move on. That can't be, because the guy who's supposed to be dead said they're breaking up.
By the way, if you want us to move on, what do you want us to move on to?
Are you guys starting to understand that not everybody knows what they're talking about? I hope at some point, that we stop with this nonsense of, oh my God, the dead guy said they're doing this and taking it as fact. It's crazy to me how many people, and there's some guys out there that I think we talked about Jason Shearer. I think Jason does a great job with Arizona. I think you look at John Kurtz, his interview with Ross took off because people tried to change what Ross said.
Yeah.
365 Sports, I think, does a great job. Obviously, the big boys, I think guys like Ross Stellinger, guys like Pete the Mole.
Mm-hmm.
It's Thamel.
It's well,
money. Did you say Bojan? Do you watch ACC football
games? You don't know anything about Florida State, bro.
Bro, do you watch Michigan football? Today is the opening of Big Ten Media Days, by the way, is today. We've already crowned Michigan, right? Well, there's been no punishment. Fuck off, fat ass. Okay.
Maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself.
Yeah, exactly right. Mike Smith, it's a sticky, soaking situation.
That's right.
Cannot hide from it. Totally agree.
Yeah.
More people will watch North Carolina versus Clemson instead of Clemson versus Coastal Carolina. Don't you talk about the Chanticleers like that. I think North Carolina is doing things in football that they only get to a certain level, and then it's basketball season. Mike Smith, I'm your private dancer for money. Do what you want me to do. Jake doesn't get it. Guys. FSU and Clemson are leaving the ACC by July 1st per Joe Rando's sports podcast show thingy. How many people out there ran with that story? They're going to announce it, Monty.
Well, the Pac-12 is getting $600 million. Florida State's going to announce their departure from the conference at ACC Media Days. And Greg Sankey's an asshole. I mean, we told you right here. That's all you need to know. I mean, just take it at face value.
Just do what you do, Marty.
Yeah, just take it at face value. Any of these buffoons can just say whatever they want, and everyone and their mom is going to write an article about it. And then we're not going to get any retractions. We're not going to get any, dude over here said they were going to leave the ACC on media day, and then it never happened. Maybe we shouldn't trust him. Just saying. Come on, dude.
Yeah, I don't pretend to understand what people's thinking and thought processes are, but I think we're in that situation where you just know on some level that you are going to struggle if you take hook, line, and sinker what everybody says.
Yeah.
Because it's just simply not true. Since the ACC schools and Big Ten schools are both on ESPN, it makes sense if they play 1 or 2 games in September. It would make for better ratings. But does it make for better ratings if, and I guess this is my point, if it's Florida State and whoever in the Big Ten, that's a good game. But like in basketball, because I think we see the ACC Big Ten Challenge or whatever, do you really want Indiana football? And I think Indiana is probably the worst team in the Big Ten this year. I could be wrong, but I think that Indiana is probably the worst football program in the Big Ten right now. So if we take Virginia, who I think is probably the worst football program in the ACC, If we take Virginia versus Indiana, is that draw an audience? I don't think it is. And this is largely the problem with the ACC. Miami's a great example of this. We need Miami to produce. We need Miami to win big games. Miami, when Miami football is good, that conference is stellar.
But I think for Florida State, like, Big 12, Big 10, you just need to get good matchups. But ultimately, what you're not going to get away from for Florida State is that if they were to do this whole thing, and it's not going to happen, but
it's not.
If you were to leave your conference and go independent to have a scheduling alliance with the Big 12 or the Big 10, like, I just don't understand how that makes sense for you, because at that point, you don't have the NBC deal that Notre Dame has. You don't have, like, even the CW deal that the Pac-2 did. Would Florida
it's called
State,
the C-Dub, please.
Yeah. Would Florida State even be able to get a C-Dub deal for their home games? I mean, that's a real question when you consider that TV deals typically take 6 to 8 months to hammer out.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I truly do not. I think it's very interesting, though. I don't. Yeah, we'll see. The ghost of Gumby. Guys. Sources say, I'm sorry, did we wake you up?
Yeah.
Sources say the ACC has a secret email server in Homie's garage. I mean,
Homie's garage.
Well, and I think the bigger question is, what are we going to find about the ESPN contract on Hunter Biden's laptop? Did you?
Hunter Biden's laptop. See what he did there? That was a dig at Hunter Biden and his laptop.
It's cocaine. It's a hell of a drug. All this just because their quarterback got hurt. Drug. And I thought the 40 whiners were the 40 whiners.
See what he did there? The 40 whiners. Yeah. You
would take Brandon Ayuk on the Eagles in a second.
Yeah.
Well, we already got Saquon.
Yeah.
You're firing your coach. It's inevitable.
It's going to happen, dude.
That dickhead's going to stand up on the dais and cry, and you're going to be like, oh, man, I love this guy. Then next week when they lose to the Giants, you're going to be like, shit, fire him. What are you going to do now? Cry like a bitch? All of a sudden, it's going to be, Nick Sirianni needs fired.
What, handing off to Saquon every play didn't work out the way you thought it would?
Come on, man. James, Florida State and Clemson have great fan bases and great facilities.
Well, Marty.
They expanded upward, Marty.
The upper deck.
The upper deck that they added. The Bobby Bowden upper deck. I mean, nobody sits up there because you can't see shit.
Marty, you can see their pile of money at the 50-yard line on the logo from the upper deck. It's quite amazing.
That's where their legal team sits, way up there because, Okay. Tanner Plummer, to be fair, Georgia has won 2 national titles in 4 years, and FSU hasn't won dick. So I believe it. That's how you pronounce it. FSU hasn't won in a minute, so I kind of get FSU complaining. It still doesn't justify their whiny behavior overall.
Tanner, bro.
What do you mean you get them complaining?
What do you mean you get that they're complaining, bro? That doesn't work. You haven't won. They haven't won. You have no merit to say that you should have been in. That's the okay. So if Georgia had lost their starting quarterback, Georgia, first team all SRT, if they had lost their starting quarterback the way Florida State did, they still would have been in. Because what do we know about Georgia? Oh, well, Georgia has massive depth. Next guy up is going to be just another quarterback that's going to be probably in the Heisman conversation. And if you plug that guy in right now, he's going to be ready to go. So Georgia's not really going to see any fall off. That's the problem for Florida State. They didn't have anybody. You didn't have anybody behind Buddy. So I'm just saying it's not
anybody.
It's not the same, dude.
Behind Buddy.
Yeah, you didn't it's not the same. So I don't understand why they're complaining. It's a bad look, dude.
You didn't have nobody behind Buddy.
It's the same thing as being pissed off that you didn't get picked first on the playground, bro. Like, it's the same thing.
Oak State James for $5. I'd rather talk about ACC stuff than politics. P.S. SMU is beating Florida State, and then they'll get the pro rata they deserve. Man, I got to tell you about Preston Stone's cock. Oak State James has, and he lives, I believe you live in Fort Worth or Austin. You live somewhere close to Preston. Preston Stone, the starting quarterback at SMU, he's a good quarterback. I mean, he's legit good quarterback. Oak State James puts Preston Stone right up there with the greatest sex symbols in the history of our country and believes that the seminal fluid, which is different than Florida State.
So I said, yeah.
That John Stone, it's Preston. John Stone is a defender. Anyway, the point is that Preston Stone, I mean, essentially shoots fire from his whizzer. And I'm just saying, if you think the Secret Service had a problem with Homie up on that roof, what do you think's going to happen when Oak State James shows up at Preston Stone's SMU game? And he's got a Buc-ee's sandwich in one hand, and he's got a box of Magnums in the other hand. And Preston Stone's like, no, come in. Why don't you have a seat?
Dude.
Like I am telling you now, it's going to be To Catch a Predator when Oak State James shows up at Preston Stone's house. And it's going to be like, hey, James, what are you doing with that Boone's Farm?
Well, I was just here to trade my bucket full of pork.
I was here to warn Preston that there's some real heavy hitters in the ACC, and he's got to be careful anyway. Oak State James has an irrational problem with Preston Stone's Bucky.
Dude.
Okay. Jeremy Severe, the only team that should complain about not getting in the playoffs. I said
it's my quarterback.
Anyway, not getting in the last season was Georgia. Haven't heard anything. Georgia's going out for revenge this season.
It's really unfair.
Totally agree. Oak State James. If SMU can pull off the upset on September 28th, then yes, SMU picked up 3 linemen from the portal. They will be better. They better protect my guy Preston. I need him in full form after the game.
Dude.
Okay. Alexander Guggenheim. I normally catch the replay of these and listen to 1.5, 2 times. It's so odd to hear Monty at one time. Well, there you go. There you go, dude. Tanner Plummer, Jake, I get why they're upset they didn't make it to the college football playoff because they hadn't won in a while. Losing makes people better. Only if you're the Eagles. Losing does not make people better in college football. With the proliferation of the transfer portal, NIL, when you lose guys. When you lose coaches, your players transfer. When you lose and your coach gets fired, the biggest question is, and I say this sincerely, what happens if DJ Uiagalelei gets hurt?
Yeah.
Because the best predictor of future action is past behavior.
And that's why I say for Mike Norvell, the decision-making has to get better. I mean, you have to be willing to take him out of the game.
I agree.
To protect him for later in the year, because I'm just telling you, man, on that campus, there's no way that the conversation is anything but, hey, we got to go out and prove it again this year. Like, yeah, last year happened and we suffered that injury and it is what it is, but we got to go out and prove who we are as a program. We got to show that we can restock and retool and reload just the same way that Bama and Georgia and and LSU and all these other big time, programs do it. And that's going to be Mike Norvell's task. And part of that task is not just playing your starting quarterback every single snap of every single game. I mean, that's just what it is. Now, I'm here for the conversation of, hey, well, for Florida State, they're playing a bit lighter of a schedule, which means you're going to have to rack it up on teams. You're going to have multiple 60-point games this year to prove like, hey, yeah, we are actually that good. But don't be surprised if you see an emphasis on running the football out of this team. What better way to ensure your quarterback stays healthy than by riding the running back room? Run the ball, then open up the passing lanes, and now we're in a great spot. That was their problem last year. You did not run the football. So What did you wind up doing? Well, you wind up taking a bunch of shots down the field. They love to play that 8 to 15-yard route tree. And what does that mean? Your quarterback needs 3.5 seconds so that your guys can get through the route.
And you didn't exactly have a stellar offensive line.
So here we are.
I just think it's one of those deals where you have to make a value decision. It truly is, in my opinion. And I don't know that you do that. I truly do not. James, if SMU picked up 3 old linemen from the portal, they'll be better. Okay. Well, let's hope so, or your boy's going to be without a twig. What do you mean by upset? SMU is back, bro. Aren't they the favorites? SMU is back. I mean, Craig James's kid is still locked in that Connex box in Lubbock, but it's fine. Bitter, not better. Yes. Better. Marty, you can't read. What did I? Losing makes team. Oh, bitter. My bad. You said bitter. I said better. I can't read. Morty needs to put on his reading glasses. I do. UW fan Jim Roman Dunze, if losing makes you better, then Bama must suck.
Dude, they must be Garbo, dude.
Roll Tide! Nick Saban is a better man than you are.
Jake, program.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Justin Bemis, hello. The only thing SMU is pulling off is their unis after the ass kicking. But it says Dallas.
Yeah, dude, they own Dallas, bro. Pipeline in Texas, man.
Just like the SEC owns Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean,
Omni Hotel and stuff.
Marty, you lose all credibility when you don't even know how to read the word bitter. Michael Pressler.
Michael.
Knowles need the Irish and Gators to be good this year in the worst way. They really do.
Yeah, they do.
To wrap up this ACC Florida State thing, until there is a mechanism for Florida State to leave, I think you have to put all of this, because I love that people are like, well, in 2030, Marty, we're going to see some people doing something. Okay. Do we really think the college football landscape is going to be the same for the next 6 years? Do you really think that's factual? How do you get there? When you're like, oh, well, 28, 29, 20. Do you understand that we're in a window where this season we're going to go through 12 teams? And then I think after the season, we're going to get people that are bitching and moaning, and there's going to be more. You look at these NIL lawsuits. You look at the separation of classes at the top of college football. You really think that that's not going to spur more change? Do you really think that my guess is, and I know this is talked about all over the place in college football. I know administrators have talked about this in the ACC. My guess is college football changes before the ACC would ever melt down. I think because you have legitimately 2 more years minimum of Florida State and Clemson if a ruling happened today somehow. Well, Florida State and Clemson are in it this year, and you miss the notice deadline to leave next year. So you would need a judge to say the grant of rights is invalid, the TV contract's invalid. Like, you'd need a judge to move heaven and earth. And then you'd have to go through appeals and all of that. For the next 2 years, if the status quo remains, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And again, I point out, look at all the seismic changes that are going to happen in that window. You are going to have a split where the top teams opt into paying that $20+ million revenue sharing. Those who don't opt in, and 99% of college football programs cannot afford it. So they're not going to opt into that. So immediately you're going to have a different set of rules, as President Baker, the NCAA president's talked about, Charlie Baker. You're going to have a different set of rules, both financially, all of it, NIL, all of it, that's going to take over the top teams in college football. You're going to have this NIL settlement, I think, put some people out of business because they can't afford it. I think you're going to see significant reductions in sports. And I think people like Arizona, who already have a massive hole, the Cals of the world that already have a massive hole to dig out of, you're going to see them compete at a much lower level for a period of time. But again, I ask you, Do you really think that the status quo is going to reign supreme for 2 straight years in college athletics? It's not possible. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Private money, I think, is going to have a huge impact. So those are 3-4 major shifts in the world of college football right there that have nothing to do with realignment, but will cause realignment. And I think move to a super league.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. So I think all of that happens unless, again, a mechanism shows itself, a ruling, somehow Florida State decides to pay its way out, whatever that might be. Notre Dame joins a conference, that would absolutely rock the ACC. Unless something crazy like that happens, the status quo remains. And anybody telling you, hey, in 27, 28, Marty, we're going to get big. Okay, you're guessing. Because nobody in this league, and I have talked to people in the Big 12 about this on a regular basis, nobody in the Big 12 believes that, that the top 10 teams in the ACC are going to leave. Nobody believes that because there's nothing that says outside of North Carolina and Duke, who I think are the only 2 teams in that league that can write their own ticket. They're the only 2 that can say, oh man, I can go. If North Carolina called the Big 10 today, they'd be there. If Duke called the Big 12 today, they'd be there.
Right.
North Carolina and Duke can go wherever they want. Florida State and Clemson cannot. They can't. That's as much a fact as there is facts possible. I think Florida State could go to the Big 12. I think if Florida State called the Big 12 and said, we want in, Brett Yormark could make it happen. But I don't think that could happen for 2 years. So I think that's one. But where else is Florida State going to go? Greg Sankey's kind of muddied that water. The Big 10, I don't think, from what I'm told, wants nothing to do with the state of Florida. I don't know what else you do. So unless a mechanism happens, I think we're getting a super league long before we're ever getting, oh, yeah, the top 10 teams in the ACC are joining the Big 12. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Something significant would have to change. Significant. It would have to change, in my opinion. Better, bitter, butter.
Right.
We need butter that's bitter, and it needs to be
that's a lot
better.
of butter for all the toast, dude. I mean, come on.
That's what I'm saying. MAGA boy. Big 10 and SEC said no. Well, you don't know that they said no. You have no idea they said no. And nobody even knows if they were asked. So again.
Next comment.
Eric and Raleigh. College football is unlikely to be the same for the next 6 days, let alone years. That's what I'm saying. And I know people mock me every time I say it. The ACC lives on Tobacco Road, man. It's Carolina and Duke. They're going to make the ultimate decision. And I think third on that ladder, Notre Dame. If Notre Dame decided today to leave the conference, they won't. Or join the Big 10, they won't. That would have far more impact than whatever Florida State's spending hundreds of millions of dollars on.
Right. Yeah.
Far more. That's true. Soccer is back like SMU. That's what I'm saying. Jeremy Severe. Hope BYU reminds SMU who won in the Miracle Bowl this season. Great. Now I'm sounding like a classic BYU fan. Guys, do you remember the Miracle Bowl?
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Can I ask you guys a question?
Monty.
If Aaron Rodgers takes ayahuasca and he shits himself, which cheek gets worse splatter? The left cheek or the right cheek?
Yeah, I've been immunized.
And do you think it reaches the thighs? It's a legitimate question.
Could happen to anybody.
What say you, sir? Mike Smith, people have been, soccer is going to make it big in the U.S. for years. Soccer has a systematic issue in this country. It will never be, even in the Copa region, it'll never be that because it's not a way out. It's not a way of life. It's not. Why is soccer so huge in Brazil? Because I'm taking soccer practice over life in the favela, in the slums of Brazil. Why is soccer a way of life in Mexico, in South America, in Central America? Why is it a way of life in Europe? Because it's all you care about. It is It is from the day that you bang off mom's thigh, woman or man, you're given an opportunity to play football. Soccer, football.
Right.
I'm unfamiliar with it.
They have academies, they have feeder systems, they have all of it. Do they play American football in Europe? Not really. Not really. Would you rather play rugby or soccer if you grew up in Samoa? You're playing rugby. That's not how it is in this country. We try to make it that way. We're not a country of soccer players. Right now, I think we're a country of basketball players and football players and pickleball players, and now the explosion of golf at the junior level. Golf's a bigger sport than soccer, sorry to tell you.
Yeah.
And I know that soccer people usually get their tits in a twist over it. Couldn't even say it with a straight face. They usually get upset about it. Now, listen, I was at the Foo Fighters concert the other night. It was lovely to be surrounded by Chelsea football shirts and Christian Pulisic shirts. But why was that the case? Because in our country, soccer is very regional. Is soccer a big deal in the Northeast? It is. You know what was interesting about being in Boston for the first time ever over this weekend? You know what you see everywhere there? Lacrosse fields. You know what you never see pretty much anywhere else you go? Lacrosse fields. Right? Like soccer's a regional game in this country. And generally after high school, soccer shrinks dramatically because you can play club ball all the way up to high school. But how many kids go on to college? Oh, that's right. Not many. You know why they shouldn't be going to play college? They should be in a feeder system where AYSO and club soccer should be dead. You should have an MLS team in every single market that has a feeder system and a farm system. And we don't.
Yeah.
We don't. That's not who we are in this country. And we're never going to be that.
Yeah.
We're never going to be that.
Well, and I think globally too, what's interesting is that soccer is a super accessible sport. So when you're talking about part of the reason why our country doesn't do soccer as much as other countries, because we have the money to do football. We have the money to do baseball, hockey, basketball, certainly. You know,
it's always systematic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always. And again, now I think we're seeing, look how many amateurs look how many amateurs.
Thank you.
Are winning on the PGA Tour right now. A lot. How many amateurs are finishing top 10 in majors? Mm-hmm. We've never seen this many. And it's because kids are picking up golf clubs at 5 years old. Because by the time they're 15, they can make money swinging a golf club. Now we have this explosion of golf influencers where you're getting guys like Grant Horvath and the good guys, and you're getting all these dudes playing golf with President Trump. You're getting playing golf with Tiger Woods. You're getting all of this stuff. Xander Schauffele through Callaway, and like you look at the explosion of social media golf influencers.
Yeah, I think YouTube put out a stat last month that said in 2023 there were 4.3 billion views or something on YouTube for golf related content. Like it was the number one in terms of views on their platform. It was like the number one most viewed sport or genre of sport. So, I mean, there's no question that golf is here and it's great. I mean, I think it's a great game, but I just think when we sit here and talk about like why soccer is like 18th on the list in our country, there's a reason for that. And I think your point that you made about how soccer just isn't a way out in our country is the best point. Like there's not an incentive to play soccer over football or soccer over basketball or whatever. There's just not. The money is in the NBA, number one. I would say Major League Baseball, number two, and then the NFL.
Yeah, well, baseball draft compensation is ridiculous now.
Yeah.
That's very true.
So, you know, I just think that culturally speaking and financially speaking, soccer just is not a priority. And that's probably not going to change. And it is what it is.
And again, look at Saudi Arabia. I think this is a really interesting. What do you know about Saudi Arabia professional sports? Nothing. They're buying soccer players. But what else are they buying now? They're buying golf. Live Golf, right? And you look at the explosion of golf content globally. Live has played a big role in that. And I think when you look at where money is being spent, look at the Pacific Rim, the Asian countries, spending trillions of dollars on golf over the last decade. They're not spending on soccer anymore. The Chinese Super League pretty much is dead. So, yeah, Mike Smith, Kay Sumbry, or I can't do anything right today. Kay Sumbry, hello. Mike Smith, demographics have been spouting that same lane line for years on soccer. I agree with that. The ACC has become a Division II All-Carolina conference, right? I don't know. I think the ACC has – Jim Phillips is a good man. I think Jim Phillips, Northwestern alum, obviously, as most of you know. I think Jim Phillips is doing exactly what he can do. He is having to make up for some ails of the past. I think that you have to move the ACC into the modern times, and thinking has to change on that. I think that the reality that most people don't want to talk about in the ACC is that Carolina, Duke, and Notre Dame carry the biggest cocks in that conference.
Yeah.
Probably.
Stay hard.
You know. They carry the most water in that town. And I think it's going to be awfully difficult to move that conference forward or backward without those three. And until Florida State and Clemson can get those three on board, I don't know how you fix it. And if a judge rules that the grant of rights is invalid or the ACC, whatever, if a judge rules in favor of Florida State, okay, all bets are off. But until that happens, and I don't think, at least this weekend, I was told that it's not, today is Tuesday, it's not Monday. Yesterday, I was told that that's not happening anytime soon, that we are a significant distance away from a ruling in that case.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to take time, a lot of it. Yeah, it's no secret we BYU fans live in the past far too often. Well, because you don't have anything to hang on to currently. Because if you win 5 games again, I think significant change is going to come to that program.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to win 5 games. I think you're going to win 8.
I hope so. I do hope so. Soccer is a way of life in Sandy, Utah. Well,
okay. Well, maybe for you, dude, but I can tell you for most people, it's not. So,
and RSL's actually having a decent year. But you know what, Pressler? This is an interesting point. No way cricket is the next big sport. I don't think it is either. Not in our country, but do you guys understand the global reach of cricket?
Yeah, cricket, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but cricket is one of the biggest sports globally. That's been talked about.
And why is that? Well, because India is fully on board with cricket. And why is that significant? Because India has a massive population and wealth that spends on cricket. And cricket has reach, dude. Cricket absolutely has reach. Being in Boston for the first time, you know what you see everywhere there? Racism. You know what I see there? You know what was interesting? So for those of you who don't know, here on the Marty program.
Hey, Marty.
The Monty Show was off yesterday because I went to Boston this weekend. Saw the Foo Fighters at Fenway Park on Sunday night, blah, blah, blah. But you know what I realized? I miss living in a major city. I love Utah. Utah sucks. Don't move here. I love Utah. Dude, I'd move to a major metropolis tomorrow if I could. Honest to God. If you said to me, hey, here's a $2,000 a month condo in Boston, if I could live downtown, walk everywhere, great walking city. And you know what I loved about being in Boston? I saw black folks and white folks and Asian folks, and I saw color. I saw ethnicity. In Utah, one of the things that you quickly realize is you don't see a lot of different skin tone.
Yeah.
You don't see you don't hear different accents.
Yeah.
We are a very white state. And it was so nice to be able to see Little Italy and have a great Italian dinner and see Chinatown and see all of this diversity and not have it be a thing where it's like, oh, well, diversity is bad. No, it's not. I miss living in a major city.
Was Boston what you thought it would be, being that it was your first time there?
It was better. It was better. I really enjoyed the food is fantastic. The other thing about Utah, it's not a food state. Don't let people tell you how great the food in Salt Lake City is. It's ass. It's absolutely ass. Bro, like walking around Boston.
Because it's garbage.
There is a outside of Fenway, the best. They literally, I think it's called the Best Sausage Company. The Italian sausage was awesome.
Yeah.
Going to Parla is the name of the restaurant in Little Italy. Going to Mike's Pastries and getting unbelievable cannoli.
What'd you get at the Italian place? You get chicken parm, or what'd you get?
Yes, I got chicken parm because they didn't have lasagna on their menu.
Okay.
But it was unbelievable. It was people looking at each other and talking to each other. It's all the things that you don't get in Utah, because Utah is a state. And again, I love living here. Utah is a very inclusive state. They don't want, or exclusive state. They don't want to include people from out of this state.
Yeah.
If you are not white and you are not, largely, if you're not white in LDS in Utah, you're not one of the bros.
Right.
Right. You're not in the club. Right. And here, if you are, one of the things that struck me in Boston was the fact that we had a lot of diversity just in our Uber drivers. We had a white Uber driver and a black Uber driver and an Arab Uber driver. Like, what do you only get in Utah? You get brown skin Uber drivers here. You rarely see white guys that drive Uber here. You just don't. Like, African American, black American men don't drive Uber in Utah. It's just a different way of life.
Yeah.
And it was so nice to be in a big city and experience big city life again, to walk places, to talk to people, to walk through major parks that have protests that didn't involve destroying stores. And like, there was a Palestinian protest, a pro-Palestine protest marching through the city, pretty much followed us where we were going. And they didn't destroy anything. It was, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
I don't think, and are there racist corners of Boston? I'm sure. But what I honestly, I don't know very many black men in Utah. I can think of one guy that I know. But if I were a black man living in Utah, I'd be uncomfortable. I think you are far more comfortable as a black man living in Boston than you are in Utah.
Oh, our major metros. I think the word diversity is the perfect word to describe it. You like, again, Utah's a beautiful place. It's not a bad place to live. You can do a lot of things here, but it has its cons, no question, and that's one of them. And I think that Utah has culture, but it's extremely different culture than most people would think of when they think of the word culture. It is so different.
You know what else was interesting? Seeing like ambulances and actual like police cars like zipping around cities. And
I think that's the difference with Salt Lake versus other markets. Salt Lake doesn't really have a downtown. Don't let people try to confuse you with this. Downtown Salt Lake is not really a downtown. It's a couple of...
No, it's like downtown LA.
Yeah, it's like
There's
couple...
nothing there.
Yeah, it's like a couple... But it's way smaller than downtown LA. Like, at least...
Way smaller.
Like, downtown LA is robust, but it's just like business. There's not like... You're not...
You don't go downtown like you do in Chicago, Boston.
Yeah,
you don't do that.
It's different. It's different. And I think that's the difference with Salt Lake versus other markets. And I got to tell you, I'm not surprised to hear you say it was nice to be back in a major metro, because there is a vibe walking down a vibrant and teeming downtown marketplace. And it's why the fall of cities like, San Francisco, what they've gone through and suffered. Like, San Francisco used to be a great like city to be in and like live in and like walk around and like, and now it's different. But like on the East Coast, like I've never been to Boston either. Would love to go to Boston. Would love to go to New York City.
Boston feels like San Francisco used to feel. It is. My wife and I were talking about that way we were walking around the city. It feels like San Francisco in a lot of ways. And it is, I would live in Boston if I could. I'd spend 2 years there. I would. And we've talked a lot about, hey, let's go spend a month in LA. Let's go spend a month in Boston. Let's go spend a month in Chicago.
Right.
Let's just go live somewhere for a month. I absolutely am going to do that. It's pretty crazy how much different the vibe is and how much.
And it's why we've said on the show for years. I mean, I like years, like we've been doing the show like 12 years or whatever it's been now. I know we've talked about it many, many times where it's really good for you, a life hack, if you will, to get out of your hometown and go live somewhere else. And I think for folks who grow up in Utah, dude, it's a great place to raise a kid. But at the same time, there are certain things in life you can't learn in Utah. And that's how to interact with folks who maybe you don't speak the same language as. Maybe they have a different background than you do. Maybe they're from overseas and they're getting used to our culture, but you don't know a lick about their culture.
We were sitting in a restaurant having breakfast Saturday morning, and you're listening to this guy over here is talking Farsi. This table over here is a bunch of friends, young people, probably in their late 20s, sitting at this community like picnic bench looking table, talking about their lives, speaking English. There was a larger Asian family sitting to our right, talking in an Asian dialect. Like it was, I think so many people are scared to be impacted by different cultures. Like, I think that's pivotal. And then we were sitting in a market. They have this market. I don't know the proper word for it. I apologize. But you go into this market area, and there's these two huge long buildings of just food options, like food halls. And in the middle is a community of tables where you sit and you eat your food that you got.
Right. And this was outdoor.
No, indoor.
Oh, indoor.
And
okay.
It was crazy to be sitting in this food hall with all of these people. Now, what's the first thing I'm worried about? Well, fuck, I'm probably getting COVID. And then at Fenway Park, same thing. You're surrounded by a bunch of different people. Now, the Foo Fighters bring in a very diverse audience. So, you had couples, like in our row, there were like 3-4, this couple we were talking to from Cleveland, this guy and his son that were wearing a Chelsea shirt are from Rhode Island. Like you have all these different groupings, and just weed. By the way, marijuana smoke in Boston is everywhere. Dave Grohl stopped the concert to make a joke about how they were getting high on stage because there was so much weed being smoked. But it was just an amazing melting pot, and I embraced that. I loved it. I thought it was really, really nice.
And again, I think that when, like, it used to be like this cool thing in our country where you grew up in your hometown and like you never left it. Like, oh, I grew up here and
lived here my whole life, man.
My whole life, and I did this. And okay, that used to be how our country was. But I do think that there is huge value, and I'm not saying to move around like a million times. What I am saying is that I do think there is big value in people seeing like the way business is done and the way people act and how the day to day is in different markets. Boston's going to be different than Seattle. Like LA is going to be different than Chicago. Like
I went, and I've been to New York was great. I was only in New York for a hot minute, but Philadelphia sucked. I think it is a place that I just don't enjoy. It's not my vibe. It's not my feeling. I spent a week there with the St. Louis Cardinals once, hated it. But take me to Florida. I love South Beach. I loved Lauderdale. Everywhere that I've been in Florida, I loved it. Go to Phoenix. Can't stand Phoenix. Phoenix is hot. There's a lot of crime. It is just, people are not thriving there. Don't like Phoenix. Don't like Chicago, largely. Chicago's one of those, and that's my hometown, by the way. Like, if you live downtown, Chicago's great. But largely, the people there are depressed. You don't have a lot of energy about life if you live in suburban Chicago, right? So I just think it depends on where you go. I thought Texas was great. I really enjoy. I've been to Dallas and Houston, and it's hot.
Humidity was so real, dude.
But in Boston, dude,
bro,
it was 90 and humid, and it was miserable. It was absolutely miserable. How hot it was. One other thing about Boston, I thought Fenway was completely overrated. Having been to most major league stadiums, Fenway was totally overrated. Like you know, when you walk into Dodger Stadium, Wrigley Field, I mean, pick your favorite ballpark. You walk into a lot of stadiums and it's like, wow, like this is. Now, granted, it was set up for a concert. We did a tour in the morning of Fenway, and then we came back for the concert. I would like to see Fenway as a baseball park. I think maybe I would feel different. It is old. It is small. It is not comfortable. It just isn't. It's not a great place to watch. I'll tell you, I wouldn't watch a concert there again. It's not a great concert venue. It is in the middle of a neighborhood, which gives it some ambiance. The streets around Fenway are great. But the park itself is not a comfortable place to watch, at least not in the setting that I was there in.
Right. Why do you think it would be better as a ballpark like experience?
Because the ambiance of Boston and Fenway Park as a baseball town, which Boston is, that gives it a certain uptick. It gives it a certain feeling.
Right.
Like when you walk into Dodger Stadium, it's special. I'm not a Dodger fan. In fact, just the opposite. I hate the fucking Dodgers. But going to Dodger Stadium, I'll never forget the first time my wife, way back in the day in 1998, took me to a Dodger game. It was emotional. Like, it's Dodger Stadium. It's special. Like walking into Wrigley Field every time is special.
Yeah.
Walking in the Fenway was not special. You know that moment when you're in a stadium and you see the field for the first time? Was not special. When you see the Green Monster for the first time, was not special. Sitting on top of the monster, not special. Going to Notre Dame Stadium, I'll never forget the first time I saw the field at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you walk into Lambeau, having been at Lambeau Field. Now, I haven't been at Lambeau Field as a fan, only as a member of the media. But when I go to a stadium as a member of the media, I do the exact same thing. I walk up the concourse, walk into the lower bowl. You walk into a place like Lambeau Field, it's special. You get those chills. AT&T Park, which I will always call it AT&T Park in San Francisco. It's special. You don't get that feeling at Fenway.
Yeah.
You just don't get that feeling. And I don't know why. Because you walk, like the first vision I had of the seating area at Fenway was the Green Monster. Just it didn't have it. It wasn't, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, it's just a feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get that. It's like, it's no different than the Big A in Anaheim. Not special. It's just a place, they happen to have a baseball park there. That's what it felt like to me inside of Fenway. Now, I fully intend to go back and see a Red Sox game. Like, I think it's something you have to do as a baseball fan. We'll see.
Yeah.
Fenway was not special. Now, having been to Wrigley Field for a football game, still felt special. Having been to, just like the old, like United Center in Chicago, or like, I'm trying to think of the best hockey venues I've been to. It's special. Walking into Staples Center for a Laker game.
Yeah.
It's different. Right? It's different.
Just has a feel, an aura.
Like you
ever
walk
been
into
MSG.
I have not.
Yeah, I haven't been either. Obviously.
Walking into and I can't think of what the Philly Stadium is called. I can't.
Great
remember.
American. No. That's Cincinnati.
What is the Philadelphia Phillies Stadium called? I can't remember. Anyway, the ballpark in Philadelphia, the ballpark in Cincinnati,
Citizens Bank
Park, the ballpark in Pittsburgh. That was one of the most individual, unique views I've ever had. Walking into the ballpark in Pittsburgh, like walking around Pittsburgh. Spent a morning walking around Pittsburgh one weekend.
Yeah,
like it's great. Fenway Park didn't feel that way. Again, the area around Fenway, Boston is a city spectacular.
Do you think that the streets and the feeling before you go into Fenway would be different for a baseball game than it would have been for the concert?
No, it was amazingly packed for the concert. It was the ambiance. Dude, Fenway Park, and I put a video up on my Instagram the other night. Fenway Park, full, and the Foo Fighters playing, and the crowd. The Foo Fighters do a unique job of getting the crowd involved in their concerts. So the crowd singing back at them was amazing. It was packed. It's a terrible concert venue. It's not intimate. You can't really get close to the stage. It's not great. But it was the Foo Fighters. I think that's one of the best shows I've ever seen the Foo Fighters play. Like the actual music itself was spectacular. The park full and everybody singing. And it was packed. I don't know that you could have fit another human being in there. And the way that they set it up, the seating and everything, I don't know that you could do it different. It was easy to get in and out of. It was like, I thought Fenway did a great job hosting the concert. Just as a concert venue, it's not intimate enough.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well,
it's actually too big.
Yeah. What's interesting is like when you do outdoor concerts, I think that's part of you run that risk where like at an outdoor venue, it doesn't feel as intimate because the roof, if you will, is not there. So you don't have the feel of like, hey, we're going into the building. It's like when we saw them at where the Suns play at Talking Stick.
Mm-hmm.
That was a decent venue. That it's a smaller venue.
Oracle. I saw him at Oracle in Oakland, rather, excuse me. Spectacular.
Yeah.
I saw him in Arco Arena in Sacramento. Spectacular.
Right. Like you're going into the building.
USANA Amphitheater.
Yeah.
Was spectacular.
So, I guess I am a little surprised that Fenway didn't have that feel. Like Fenway, I've always heard people kind of talk about it as like, and again, that was for baseball games. So I agree. It's probably different, but everyone's always just said, yeah, it's one of those ballparks that, it's like one of those, everyone always lumps Fenway in with Wrigley because they're kind of that same category.
But the thing you always hear about Fenway is it's old and it's small. And I think it only holds 37,000, but the seats are uncomfortable. They still have, and the guy went out of his way to tell us, it's still one of the only parks with wooden seats, the original wooden seats. And it's uncomfortable. I don't know where I will choose to sit when I go to a Red Sox game, but I will go back for a Sox game. But I don't know that I would sit.
Have they upgraded? Like, do they have on that second level, do they have suites and stuff or like?
They added, they've built up.
Yeah.
They've built up because they're in a neighborhood. You can't build out. So they've built up. And it is, the expansion of Fenway was great. They did a great job having I was really surprised to see their World Series trophies out there that they had for us on the tour. And it's old. It's fucking old. Fenway Park that's what it is. It's old. The concourses are nice. And I'm not trying to be a dick about this, but the concourses, the area, the streets around the park, like, super cool, super old, like feel intimate, great. You walk into the seating area and you're like, oh, that's it. You're like, oh, I didn't even take that many pictures because it's just not.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that feeling. Like when we were walking around Anfield, where Liverpool Football Club play, you were just in awe of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like when we toured Chelsea Stadium, you're in awe of the whole thing. At Fenway, I actually felt like the tour was too long. And we didn't get to go on the field and touch the Green Monster because of the concert setup. But I was like, that's fine. It was weird.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to be an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tanner, I always have a special feeling when I walk into RSL
Yeah,
Stadium.
man.
Nobody
Wow,
does.
dude. Bro, I was just blown away, dude.
Stay hard.
Nobody does. Mike Smith, the Astrodome was so cool back in the day. I've never been inside the Astrodome. I've been inside the drink box. Minute Maid's a cool stadium. It's really cool. Now, again, I was there for baseball. So for 2 years, I covered the Cardinals. I got to travel quite a bit with them. That was pretty cool. But yeah, there are very few parks. I've never been to Yankee Stadium, old or new. And I definitely want to go to Yankee Stadium. But there are very few parks where I can't wait to see that place. Every time I go to Wrigley Field, I'm like, man, I can't wait to get back. But I really hope I hope Fenway feels different for a baseball game.
I hope Safeco lives up to it when we get to go there. Now T-Mobile Park, I think it is for the Mariners.
People love that place.
Yeah.
People do love that place. But now you're all girlfriended. You're not allowed to go and do that fun stuff.
Right.
Calford, I heard it's haunted. Fenway? Yeah, okay.
Everything on the East Coast is haunted, bro.
One more thing before we get to the Delta Airlines thing. And then the thing nobody wants to talk about thing. I thought one of the best parts about Boston was the old architecture. The churches, the buildings. We walked the Freedom Trail, most of it. Where the Boston Massacre happened, and there's just some really cool stuff in that town. And
history,
that's what I like. I like American history. I'm into, hey, this is the building where they made the decision, to overthrow the British regime. Like the truth about what the Boston Massacre was. The history of that place is super cool. It is, you just get that feeling walking around and seeing all the different sites. And you're like, wow, hey, yeah, George Washington stood here. Hey, cool, Ben Franklin stood here. Walking around Harvard the other morning. Like just understanding that the history of the past is repeating itself with this Israel-Palestine situation at Harvard, and just seeing Harvard's statue and seeing the library and walking around Cambridge, and they're just super cool.
Yeah.
Super, super cool. And then there's Delta Airlines pissing everybody off. So I fly Delta pretty much exclusively.
Right.
Now, if you don't know, the airport in Salt Lake City sucks ass. It's terrible. And it's brand new.
Okay, why do you think it sucks?
Because you have to walk forever no matter who you're flying or what you're flying. It's ridiculous how much you have to walk in that airport. It is forever. And every flight I take, like yesterday, there are 49 gates in the A terminal.
Right.
We parked at gate 47 yesterday. And so
Damn.
you have to walk fucking forever. And if you fly Southwest, that's a you problem.
Yeah.
Because Southwest, forget it. You're walking forever. You're at 10, 15-minute walk to get to a gate.
Yeah, I think they said from the entrance of the airport to your Southwest gate is over a mile.
It's absolutely absurd how long you have to walk. So there is that. We were originally supposed to fly out on a red eye at 11 o'clock on Friday night. Canceled because of the crowd strike BS. 6 a.m. This is the wildest story I've ever incurred, thankfully, on an airplane. 6 a.m. flight Saturday morning. All right, cool. We lost half a day in Boston, but still we're going to go. Get on the plane. Instantly fall asleep. Like I'm sitting in my seat at like 5:30. I'm in row 2. We fly first class because I'm a pimp. Row 2, I pass out sleeping. While I'm sleeping, they take a flight attendant off the plane in an ambulance because this flight attendant got sick. Yeah, it's going to be another hour delay minimum. And they said 90 minutes. While we wait for another flight attendant, we cannot leave without another flight attendant. So you delayed us 7 hours, and now we got to wait another 90 minutes because a flight attendant got sick. What are the chances of that?
Yeah.
Thankfully, half an hour later, another flight attendant Showed up, closed the door, took off, flew to Boston, no problem. Okay, we get to Boston. People are asleep all over the place in the airport. It was horrendous. Okay, Monday morning. We are supposed to fly out at 9:30 on Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. On time. We're oversold by 8 seats. We need 8 people to take $800 in a different flight. We need 8 people to take $950 in a different flight. We need 8 people to take $1,100 in a different flight. And we'll put you up in a hotel overnight because we don't have a flight to Salt Lake until tomorrow morning.
Did you consider it?
No. Then all of a sudden, oh, you know what? The flight's going to be delayed an hour. We have too much fuel on the plane. Because they were having trouble getting people to take their offer. So the plane was too heavy. Too many people, too many bags, too much fuel. Flight can't fly. So they had to lower the fuel level. And I think they got it down to 2. We have 2 more spots, $1,100 and hotel accommodations for tonight. Hour later, we get on the plane. At the end of the day, on the flight home, we were an hour and 10 minutes delayed. They made up time in the air, so we were essentially 40 minutes late getting to Salt Lake City yesterday. Got off the plane. The line for Delta customer service was the length of all 49 gates, essentially. And actually, it would have been half of that. So all 25 gates.
Bro.
On this concourse. From the Delta customer service thing all the way to the Delta Sky Club at Salt Lake City. It was insanity. And Delta still has not fixed that. They are still canceling, I think on Twitter this morning, 800 more flights canceled or delayed this morning. 1,400 yesterday, 800 today. And they are the only airline still dealing with this. And to his credit, Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, is absolutely crushing them for it. He has made it very clear. And this is what I always tell people. If your flight gets canceled or you get booted off a plane, they owe you compensation for that. And he's made it very clear. If you cancel flights, you need to refund that money today, not in 10 days, because Delta's telling you 10 business days for a refund. Hell no. Today. Because people need to be able to go to other airlines and book travel. And not many people can afford to go and book while you hold their money. So I don't know how they fix it.
Well, and it's interesting. Like Delta usually is not in these positions. Like Delta usually is an airline that, handles their business pretty well, I would say. You usually get a great experience. Their app is easy to work with. Like, yeah, they are a little more expensive, but it's worth your time. And that's what's interesting about this whole CrowdStrike situation, because it was not 6 months ago that Southwest was dealing with a similar issue unrelated to CrowdStrike, where they have this booking system that crashed, yada, 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 and everyone was crushing Southwest. And now it's funny that the coins flipped and Delta's the one dealing with it. So I just think, I agree that you should have to issue that refund same day, especially in this scenario. You can't just hold people's money. And I think that my thing with the Salt Lake Airport is I agree and disagree. I agree that the Salt Lake Airport is a walking man's airport. You damn well better have your walking shoes on to get anywhere in that airport. However, it's better than LAX. It's better than these airports where you got to take a shuttle to get out to your gate. You got to go through, 2 hours of security. You got to do all this stuff. I would rather walk far and get through security in 20 minutes and have easy access in and out of the airport than deal with all the nonsense inside of the airport to have a little bit shorter of a walk. And that's the thing with Salt Lake. And I always tell people, man, I get it. You don't want to pay Delta pricing. Totally get it. Then you better not complain about the walk to Southwest. Like, it's literally like, I don't think people understand. If you've never flown out of Salt Lake, quite literally, the way the terminal is set up, everyone comes in the same entrance. Everyone goes through security the same way.
Baggage claims in the same spot for everybody.
All that stuff is in the same spot. The only difference is that because Salt Lake is a Delta hub and an international airport, you have this situation where Southwest is way out on the far end. So they've built a tunnel that you walk through under like the tarmac to get out to your Southwest gates. And again, the quality of the airport is also needs to be praised. It's a beautiful airport. It's not like these airports where half of it's trash and half of it's nice. So aesthetically, it's fine. It's just you have to be okay with walking forever to get to your gate. And sometimes, especially when you've dealt with all this BS, it's not fun to have to walk super far to get to the Uber lane. That's the problem.
All I'm saying is it's a beautiful airport. It's a new airport, and it sucks logistically. And they're going to open up a new tunnel that's being blah, 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 blah. It's just not realistic. I think it is. And granted, I don't mind the walk. I hate walking through airports. It drives me crazy. And I think flying Southwest, oddly, this weekend was the only time Southwest didn't have a problem that everybody else had, by the way. But I think largely, if you fly Southwest, you're okay with a shitty flight experience because it's not a good experience.
Yeah,
it's not. And most airports, I get it, are not great. Right? Sacramento's got a great airport. I think Chicago O'Hare is a pretty easy airport to navigate. Got to walk a lot. Salt Lake City is uniquely set up so that you have to walk a long way. And I just don't get it. And at least in places like LAX, they have bus service, they have shuttle services, but Phoenix at least has a train. I don't know. I'm a snob. What do you want? I'm a snob. I admit I'm a snob. It is what it is. James, I read that one already. I don't know what you're complaining about. All right, let's talk about what nobody wants to talk about. But I love talking about it.
Once again, just crediting my guy here. What we said was probably going to happen inevitably happened. Just want to point that out.
And a bunch of people got on me, and I don't know if we still have the screenshot of this dude's tweet. A bunch of people got on me because I shared a guy's tweet saying, hey, Biden sources tell me he's resigning Sunday. Congratulations to Shams. Shams broke the Biden story somehow. Fucking Shams, dude. I don't know how he did it, but Shams broke the Biden story. Joe Biden essentially took himself out of the race on Sunday. And here's what I want to talk about when it comes to this situation. How many people have no idea how the primary system in this country works? There must have been 10 or 15 people on my Twitter timeline yesterday who had no idea that Joe Biden was not democratically elected the nominee of the Democratic Party. And that phrase, democratically elected, came directly from Speaker Johnson, who said that on Sunday, that Joe Biden is a democratically elected. The Speaker of the House doesn't understand how the primary process works. Did Joe Biden do the right thing? I think that is the large. Yes, he did the right thing. And the other part of the Joe Biden conversation I think is so interesting is that I have a lot of respect for the pain that had to be. That you gave 50 years of your life to a career that you then had to resign because people said basically you're not fit to be the president for 4 more years. And I think most of us agree with that.
Yeah.
My point is, can you imagine the range of emotions Joe Biden felt Saturday morning when he made that decision, and then Saturday afternoon when he had to have a conversation with his people to say, we need to draft a letter of resignation from the primary process.
Yeah, I mean, it's painful. It's absolutely painful.
I cannot even imagine.
And I do think I do think it is a selfless act as well. I think being able to say to yourself, okay, I disagree with what people are saying, because clearly he did disagree. I disagree with, people saying that I need to resign. At the same time, though, this isn't about me per se. It's not about what I personally think. It's
Yes.
about what the country needs and what the country wants. And so I respected the decision a lot. I think that he handled it the way he went about it. I felt like he handled it well. The party is still in a position to go out and do what they need to do. Is it late? Yes, but the party can still get done what they need to get done.
And just so people have an understanding of this, and I'm gonna guess Speaker Johnson knows the rules and the laws. So him talking about pursuing the legal remedies and taking legal action because Joe Biden somehow broke a law, or I think Speaker Johnson damn well knows that's not the case. And it's this misinformation that, whether it be Donald Trump, whether it be like JD Vance, Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah.
All JD Vance has to do is not fuck it up. That's all he has to do.
Yeah.
And the guy can't do it. And for the life of me, I don't understand whether it's Joe Biden, JD Vance, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris. Lord knows she has misstepped with her mouth several times. Read the teleprompter. Read the teleprompter, man. These guys say some of the stupidest. Mike Johnson saying that Joe Biden broke election law is ridiculous. The primary process does not require the delegates. And people are like, oh, well, they're super delegates, Monty. That doesn't matter. Do you understand? It doesn't matter. Do you get that? The rules in election laws and for delegate voting specifically say, in your good conscience. You must vote in your good conscience. They can vote any way they want. What the people voted for in the primary process doesn't matter. And here's a shocker. We don't elect presidents with the popular vote in this country. Do you understand that? How many times has Donald Trump won the popular vote? Never. Not once. Not one time. And has he been president? Yes, he has. Because we elect people with the Electoral College.
Yeah, I remember the outrage when, he won his election, his presidential election, and lost the popular vote by some pretty good margin, but won the Electoral College, and people were so pissed.
And where people are getting all, and again, I think this is just Republican, this version of my Republican Party's misinformation campaign, saying that Joe Biden missed ballot deadlines. That's the popular talking point in Republican land these days. They have missed no deadlines. There is a new ballot deadline in Ohio, but that law doesn't take effect until September 1st. So they're having a virtual convention the first week of August to cover themselves, because I believe the deadline in Ohio is August 7th, where the delegates are going to vote. But what people don't seem to understand is no deadline is passed, no convention is passed, no delegates have pledged themselves or officially nominated Joe Biden as the presidential candidate.
Yeah.
None of that has happened. They haven't had a convention. Does anybody know what the only purpose of the convention, Democrat and Republican, is? To nominate your candidate for president, where the delegates then put their votes with that candidate at the convention, where then, and here's the other thing that Republicans keep talking about, no ballot has been printed. You understand that, right? Like, people are saying that they're going to have to tear up all the ballots and there's going to be ballot fraud. No ballot has been printed for the election.
Yeah.
Because they haven't had a convention.
And he's never was the official candidate. It was just assumed.
What is the trigger to print a ballot? By law, what is the only way a ballot can get printed? when the Republican National Party and the Democratic National Party officially submit in writing their candidates for president, which they do not do until the nominating process at the convention is done. And then all independent or others submit their signatures for review and are certified so that they can then be on the ballot. RFK's problem right now is that he doesn't meet the signature requirements in every state to get on the ballot. There's a plain process in place by rule and law, and the Democrats are following it shockingly to a T.
Now, here's where we get into conjecture and opinions, because I feel it's very clear why the Republicans are doing what the Republicans are doing. They're not interested in talking about, hey, well, Harris is going to be the candidate. They don't want to get to that yet. They want to meddle in all this alleged gray area. And I call it alleged because there's really no gray area. The law is clear. The process is clear. Republicans are just trying to muddy the water. And so, it's a strategy. There's a reason, and I agree with what you said. Mike Johnson damn well knows the law. Every person sitting in that Congress in both places know the law and know that this process is perfectly fine and legitimate. But that's not politics. Politics is muddying the water for your advantage, and that's exactly what they're doing, which is fine. It's fine. That, you had to know, if you're the Democrats, you were going to get backlash for doing this. We all knew that was going to happen.
Republican politicians believing that Joe Biden is actually dead, and senators putting forward conspiracy theories that he had a massive heart attack and died on Air Force One. That's what's wrong with our country.
Yeah.
That's what's wrong with our country. This idea that somehow laws have been broken because it didn't go the way clear. Because I don't think there's any doubt. Running Joe Biden, you were going to lose to Donald Trump. I don't care if Satan himself was the running mate for Donald Trump. You could have put anybody in there. He'd have won against Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That was clear. You go from, and I think truly this is what Republicans are dealing with. You go from arguably one of the best, most energetic conventions, and I say one of the best days of Donald Trump's reign over this Republican Party. Because there's no doubt you came out of the convention after his, whatever that speech was. There's no doubt you came out of that last day of the convention with a lot of momentum and a lot of energy.
Feeling good.
The assassination attempt, I think, it's
supercharged the convention. There's
no doubt about it. And now Joe Biden resigns, and all of that got flipped on its head. Now you have all of this money just pouring in, these individual $20 or less contributions that I think they said added up to $81 million. And you have all of this momentum and everybody falling in line behind Kamala Harris, because what other choice do you have? I don't think she's a great candidate, but you don't have another choice. There's not, like, everybody's talking about Gavin Newsom being her running mate. That you cannot do that. You cannot have a president and VP ticket from the same state. So I think that's the 12th Amendment. You're out. I think you're looking at a place where Andy Bashir is probably, because you look at how he is going after all the stupid shit that JD Vance has already said, which, again, somebody teach that guy how to give a speech in an election cycle.
Yeah.
All of this nonsense, they're capitalizing on that. And now I'm shocked at how this version of the Democratic Party was able to pull itself together and get behind Kamala Harris in 8 hours, 10 hours.
You didn't have a choice. I mean, you didn't have a choice. I think that the problem for the Democrats is that you had to, I mean, it's what we talked about last week. So the Democrats have to, and have, they had to come together, and they had to say, okay, look, man, like we're in a place where Joe clearly is going to lose this election. And I think that the problem for voters, and this is what I think the Democrats saw. The Democrats saw and identified that even folks who supported them and their party felt irresponsible voting for Joe because of where he was at in life. And that's, it just is what it is. That's a position you were in. So then the party goes, okay, we got to ratchet this up and we got to make a move. We have to do it. And there's going to be some pain when Joe's got to resign, but we're going to immediately shift to, and we saw this play out over the weekend. I watched a ton of this stuff. It was, hey, Buddy put out his letter. He resigned. What did we get? All the Democrats saying selfless act, amazing man, 50 years of service. What an incredible act to do.
Then what did he do?
Stop talking?
No, he threw his support behind Kamala Harris as the nominee.
Well, yeah.
Which allowed everybody else to follow suit.
And so now you've got this momentum. So, like I said last week, the Democrats put a plan together and they've executed it. Does that mean they're winning the election? No, it does not. Does that mean that they have a better shot, in my opinion? Yes, it does. I think assuming it's Harris-Bashir, I think that's a better opportunity to win the election than Biden-Harris would have been.
Well, in Quinnipiac's poll that came out yesterday on Monday, Biden-Harris was behind 8 points last poll on Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Kamala Harris, without a VP yet, as the presumptive nominee, is now dead even with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that automatic shrinking and growth. I think it's going to be a fascinating campaign. And I hope the Republican machine gets to J.D. Vance and works on that guy's speeches.
And even if you ask Republicans, Harris, by any poll that you look at, whether it's Dem, Republican, whatever, is within the margin of error. So I don't care who you are. Any way you slice it, she's right in the middle of it. Right in the middle of that thing. And when J.D. Vance is out here saying all these dumbass things he's saying, it's not helping your case. And I think that when Trump selected J.D., I remember Fox News. I was watching it intentionally because I wanted to see what they were going to spin it as. Fox News says, yeah, this was, a good pick, but a risky pick.
A risky pick for sure.
Because, J.D. has said some things and he's flip-flopped a ton.
The inconvenience of pregnancy by sexual assault. It's inconvenient.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just think, look.
Really?
Look, as a voter, you're going to sit here and, what the Republican ticket is. And I think, as a sports fan, I'm sitting here looking at this political situation and I'm like, damn, dude, this might be one of the biggest, hey, let's put the backup quarterback in situations that we've ever seen as voters. I've never seen this in my lifetime. This is the first time in my lifetime this has happened where, hey, we had to have a president resign because of the situation. We had to make a change, and now this is the direction we're going.
But I also think if you're the Republican Party, you have the guy that can be the president and vice president for essentially the next 12 years. J.D. Vance can be the guy, and I think that's why he was such a home run as a pick.
Yeah.
He can be your VP for the next 4 years, and if you can get control of his speeches and what he is saying in his messaging, he can be the president for the next 12 years after that. You have a guy in Donald Trump, and again, I think people know this, but he's not young. He is old. He is a guy that has relational issues on a lot of levels. One of them being women and household women and moms and, single parent homes where mom's working and parenting. So J.D. Vance's wife was a home run, reaching out to those women specifically. And then J.D. Vance yesterday saying some really stupid stuff. And I think the Republican Party this campaign has to reel him in, has to work on his speech. He has got to learn to practice. He has got to learn how to tell a joke. That Mountain Dew joke, brutal. Nobody laughed at it. In a room that was built full of your supporters, built to laugh at your jokes, didn't laugh. And this guy, don't get me wrong, J.D. Vance gets it. Walking up and shaking people's hands, not just walking into the venue. J.D. Vance being a man of the people, excellent. Having a wife that relates to women in this country, excellent. He just can't say the wrong thing. If he says the right thing, if he falls in line, I think Donald Trump has an excellent chance to win this election.
Well, and look, I think as a party too, the Republicans, that's something that they really got to get right as a party, because Donald Trump has run this party for the better part of a decade now. And for better or for worse, there are pros and cons to that whole situation. But what we can't skip over is that if he wins this election or loses, frankly, because of his age, whatever happens in this election, I do think this is his last cycle. I can't see this guy, continuing to garner the power he has 5 years from now. He'll be too old. And the age thing doesn't just apply to Joe Biden. It's a human thing. It's a human
And now
element.
it's gone.
Yeah.
And now it's gone. And you saw over the weekend that Republicans freaked out on Sunday when I think ABC News put the stat out that Donald Trump is now the oldest presidential nominee in history.
Yeah.
Because Joe Biden's out of the race. And you just have to let that sink in. And I think the thing, if for Republicans, it's so scary is Kamala Harris and Andy Beshear bring in that younger vote. They activate the younger vote. They bring in the 20-something who is like, fuck this. I'm not voting. I'm not involved in this. Well, now you look at Andy Beshear. Andy Beshear's a good-looking, well-spoken white guy who is on the ticket, I think, we'll see, but is on the ticket with a multicultural, strong black woman who presents as educated and tough on crime, which, whether she is or not, she doesn't believe in the death penalty, which the Republicans are already hammering at that. Will bring out the 20-somethings who are like, I'm tired of crime. And what did she say yesterday? The first fucking chance she had. Hey, this guy, Donald Trump, is a criminal, convicted, woman's crime.
Beshear did too.
They're after him. And that's what I want to see the Republicans do. Get that message, because that's clearly planned, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
Beshear said the same thing. That's their talking points. That's their messaging.
As it should be.
What are the Republicans messaging on? Like, you're running tape of Tulsi Gabbard demolishing Kamala Harris in that debate. How do you understand how long ago that was and how irrelevant that is now?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the challenge for the Republicans, and I'm not saying they can't get over it, but I think the challenge is that this potential ticket of Harris and Beshear has you on age. I think they have
you on
money, certainly
by a lot now.
I do think that the person who follows this stuff but doesn't have a party, us, i.e., your average Joe American, Harris Beshear is very votable. Like, you may not like them, but they're definitely not the Joe Biden situation where it's like, I just can't vote for
when Kamala Harris is standing up there yesterday talking about affordable childcare, affordable health care, rights for women to have the health care they want and desire. Do you think that's accidental?
No.
Because what's the biggest pot of undecided votes? Middle American women.
Yeah.
Who are having trouble voting for Donald Trump because of his track record with women, who had trouble voting for Joe Biden because he's so old.
Yeah.
That now you have this pot of votes where you have the average woman watching Kamala Harris say, well, I'm going to help you pay for childcare. I'm going to help you get access to health care that you want, i.e., we're going to fight for abortion and reproductive rights. How do you not gravitate to that? How do you not gravitate? And I think the black vote in this election is critically important. You now have a mixed race woman standing up there who looks like you and says things that matter to you.
Yeah.
You're not going to vote for her?
I just think that the term, and again, I'm just going to keep saying it. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm just not. And
well, you don't have it. Nobody has anything to hang on to.
Yeah. And so the word that I think is going to win this election is relatability. I
100%.
I think as a ticket on both sides, you got to try to relate to the masses. And I'm sorry, MAGA people or Republicans or folks who are on that side. I don't think you win that category.
Republicans and MAGA are two different. I'm a registered Republican. I am not a Trump supporter. I have never been. I cannot, and we've talked about this on the show. I have trouble voting for somebody who has his track record with women.
Yeah.
That is the single, like the crime stuff, dude, whatever. What he's done to women and the restriction of women's rights is my single biggest issue.
Yeah.
With Donald Trump. And there's a bunch more. JD Vance is somebody that I'm like, okay, let me learn about this guy. Let me know about this guy. Young senator. And then the first fucking thing this guy says is it's inconvenient to get pregnant after you were raped.
Bro, that's a bad look.
That's a problem. And then you're asking me to vote for Joe Biden. I'm not voting for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And I'm not the guy who's like, well, anybody but Trump or anybody but it doesn't work. There's no such thing as anybody but.
Yeah. Because all of these candidates have skeletons in the closet.
And if you don't think the president's going to impact your life, now I'm also somebody who says vote local. Please vote for your aldermen. Please vote for your council people, your state senators, your state reps, your mayors. You need to vote for those people.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand that if Donald Trump wins this election, he will get 2 more Supreme Court appointees. Almost certainly. If you don't understand that the battleground for freedom that is taking place for women in this country right now, women's rights are at risk. And I don't know how you don't understand that. Joe Biden wasn't going to fight that fight. He was not going to fight that fight. And so I go back to this messaging thing. Now you're in a position where you cannot say, well, this administration didn't do anything about border security. Well, you're going to have an awful time arguing that when Kamala Harris was one of the main people putting together that bipartisan border war.
Yeah. They've got defense for that all day.
She was directly involved in negotiating that piece of legislation where you had Republicans and Democrats both in agreement, this is how we fix the border. And Donald Trump said, no, we're not doing that because that's going to help them get elected. So you better get your ass on message because the Democrats raised a hell of a lot of money. And I'm shocked. It is shocking to me how quickly that they unified behind Kamala Harris because she's got the delegates now. That much is very clear. There is nobody else. And this is the question I asked yesterday. Who's the other presidential candidate on the Democratic side?
Yeah, there's not.
There's not one person.
And by the way, if Harris and Bashir were to win this election, if you think Bashir is not trying to do the same thing that Vance is in the sense that he's going to try and run for president when Harris's time is up, you're out of your mind. I think that it's so funny how this all lines out, right? Like, so in 2 different ways, 2 different storylines, both tickets have this underlying thing at work where the future of the party has to kind of start getting paved a little bit here. We need to start kind of, building this pipeline of candidates that can actually run and have viability and are not 80 years old. So I think, like I said, for the Republicans, and it's like you just said, Vance is someone who can be a presidential candidate for quite some time.
That's a dude you can hang on to.
And
he's young.
Bashir is the same thing.
And the comparison, obviously not philosophical, but if you look at the comparison of JD Vance and Barack Obama, dude, that's pretty close when you think young guy, wife, kids, young guy, wife, kids. Also, by the way, somebody should tell JD Vance, and I'm glad I remembered this. Did you guys hear what JD Vance said about having kids? This is one of the stupidest messages I think I've ever heard, unless you don't want millennial voters. JD Vance last night in his speech said that these are all people who don't have kids. How can they possibly represent America? Oh my God. Do you understand how many millennials are like, yeah, we're not having kids?
Yeah, because financially it doesn't work.
And so you just stood up there and said, because Kamala Harris doesn't have kids. She doesn't have kids. How can she represent America? Do you know how many people that are going to vote against you are not going to have kids? This is why I talk about when the relatability.
Yeah.
Is Donald Trump and JD Vance relatable to what we know now and what we've heard now? How can you say they're wholly relatable to you? Joe Biden certainly was not somebody that was relatable.
I didn't relate to Joe Biden at all. And I don't relate to Harris all that much. I'm still learning about her.
We're going to find out. Yeah, because I think that's the other thing. People think that this election's over. Dudes, this is far from over. We need stump speeches. We need campaigning. We need bus tours and plane flights. And we need to see, you know what we need to see? Kamala Harris not coming off of 6 hours of sleep, where she was prepared, ready. She clearly was polished on the speech she spoke in New Hampshire yesterday.
Yeah.
Let's see her when she is standing in front of people that on 3 hours of sleep and after a long flight, when she's also got VP duties, and she's also, let's see her tired. Let's see her in the pinch. Let's see her when it's a 3-point margin of error between the two candidates.
Yeah.
Because she will misspeak, as Donald Trump will, as JD Vance already is.
Well, isn't that what campaigning is about, or running for an election is about? How few times can you misstep? Because that's what this is. They're both sides are going to misstep. Both parties, all four candidates, if you will, on the tickets are going to say dumb things. That's going to happen. But it's more about who can limit their exposure, limit the mistakes. And I think that's what I'm telling you. The money they're raising, like I'm not saying the Dems are going to win this election, but what I am saying is they're giving themselves the best shot to. And I think as Americans and as voters, we are owed that.
Yeah, and I thought Jake Tapper on CNN last night made a great point. We need to figure out who the great speaker of this election is and who of this race is. Who is the great deliverer? Who's
got presence?
Who can give a speech and be the deliverer of message on talking point without misspeaking? Because we haven't had that since Barack Obama. We have not had, because he was a great speaker. Whether you like Barack Obama or not, the guy knows how to give a speech.
Yeah.
Can Kamala Harris do that? Can Andy Beshear do that? Can JD Vance has not done that yet? Donald Trump struggles to stay. Again, the guy won't stay on the script.
I do think Vance has the ability. He needs to be taught how to do it. He's sort of an uncut gem in that sense. He needs to be trained. He needs to be polished and refined on giving a speech. And I do think there are two different types of speeches too, by the way. I don't think that we have seen Trump do that, mainly because I don't think Trump is actually a great speaker just as a politician. Not even as a president, but like just as a politician, he's not one of the best speakers we've ever seen. And he does rally style speeches, which in my opinion are different than trying to give a speech that sends a message and really
says vote
defining.
for me.
Yeah, and says vote for me. Exactly.
You can't. And I think this is going to be the other thing. We are in the era and the generation of fact checking. And how many of these speeches are we going to see where they get fact checked to hell?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think, and I hope I'm right about this, but I don't know. I think we as Americans don't trust politicians to speak the truth anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really hope that this younger generation, whether it's JD Vance or Andy Beshear, I hope this younger generation of politician that's coming up now injects the word of truth back into these conversations, because we've gone in this Trump era of politics has been all about lies and spins and half-truths. And it just has injected this vitriol and anger into politics.
Yep.
And it's this Secret Service director yesterday.
Man.
At some point, you've got to actually tell the truth. And, you know, that her not wanting to answer questions, her not wanting to be forthcoming. And I think anytime you see a bipartisan effort to do anything, whether that is wipe somebody's ass or get this lady to resign, she's got to resign. That building, by her own admittance, was 200 yards away.
Yeah, I do think, though, that we need to say, like, and maybe this is a timing issue. I don't know. I don't know the whole process back and forth, but nobody in an official capacity at a session like that's going to answer a question about an investigation that's ongoing.
But we don't make them. And this is the problem with the MAGA generation.
Yeah.
You're okay with your people not answering questions. You're okay with the director of elections in this country, right? The guy that was appointed by Trump straight up lying about whether Kamala Harris will have the ability to use Joe Biden's war chest, which is unquestioned. It is in black and white. She has access to his, and I think it's $97 million. She has access to that. The Trump appointed director of elections was like, yeah, I don't know. There's some gray area there. There's legality in it. Don't think so. Or when you put your Supreme Court nominee in front of the Senate and they're like, yeah, I don't know. I don't recall. I don't know. I don't recall. But then when Democratic operatives show up and they're like, I don't know. I don't recall. You're immediately,
you're cursing in a live session on record.
And and Marjorie Taylor Greene's talking about impeachments and investigations. Like, come on, man. When Jim Jordan's being asked questions, it's okay for him to say, I don't recall. We've got to stop allowing people to sit up there, Democrat or Republican, and say, yeah, I don't recall, because you do recall. Now, I'll give the lady credit. She straight up said, I'm not going to answer that question. At least tell me you know and you're not going to answer the question.
Yeah.
I can at least get down with that. You have to resign.
Agreed.
You did a fucking terrible job doing your job.
And that session yesterday was filled with even though she wasn't answering the question, it was filled with, yeah, we knew we messed this up and we were not, we haven't done much about it yet. That's essentially the messaging out of it. And I get it. You're investigating. Like, I largely agree with the questions being asked. Like, hey, you're investigating, but you don't have any answers. Like, they were asking her yes or no questions. Some of them she answered. Some of them she didn't. Some of those people cursed at her and said it was BS, like literally full cursing in a session. And it just is another thing where this is where we are in the country. And on one hand, I understand why she hasn't resigned yet, because, hey, you messed something up. I'm sure as a person and as a professional, she'd like the opportunity to fix it or at least get the answers before resigning. But at some point, she's going to have to resign. It's just unacceptable performance, like just 100%. And I'm still waiting for the answer on why we're not shooting this guy in the head as soon as we see he's a threat.
And why was a law enforcement officer on the roof with him and didn't do anything?
Well, and why was law enforcement see, and I think it goes a step further on that after watching this yesterday. Why was law enforcement asked to do something about it? That roof should have been in the security perimeter. It should have been. I'm sorry. There's no way around that. You messed up what your perimeter was.
And how were you watching him for 20 minutes and didn't do anything?
And I love this assertion that we distinguish or delineate from a person who is suspicious and an actual tangible threat. So it came out in this thing yesterday that they had identified the individual as a suspicious person quite some time before that dude was on the roof. And then he gets on the roof and apparently he was still suspicious. It didn't get upgraded for a minute. And I'm guessing that was the delay in the sniper acting because of the process that has to take place in communication, identifying the level of the threat. And all I'm sitting here saying is you need to resign and we need some level of reform in the process. That guy, like your defenders have to have a green light to take someone like that out. And usually I'm not on board with roasting these people, but I think it's a fair point. Before that rally happened, there were what was it, Iranian, I think it was, threats of some variety that people were worried about
against Donald Trump.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot wrong.
Listen,
dude.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
We are going to see. I would hope it'd be bipartisan, but you can't tell me the Republicans aren't going to form a committee to go after this. I mean, you can't have the leader of your party have an assassination attempt and oops, sorry about that, be the answer.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. We just happen to miss this roof over here.
Yeah, there's going to have to.
It's not going to work, dude.
You're going to have to do that. You are going to have to have a committee. And again, I would hope that the Republicans and the Democrats would cooperate on that. But I have little hope about that. But
just generally, with the show, I see all the comments. Stop telling us to not talk politics. Like, this is everyday stuff that needs to be conversed about, that needs to be talked about. And so if you're not cool with it, then just come back a different day, bro. Like I'm not like, we had like arguments last week and I'm just over it. If you can't see that these are conversations we need to have, and if you can't see that this isn't a Republican and Democratic issue, this is an everyday American issue, then just leave. Like,
but that's the
just
biggest
leave.
issue is that people aren't Americans anymore.
Yeah.
People are Democrats or they're Republicans.
Yeah.
They're Trump people or they're not Trump people. And it's amazing to me, again, on Twitter yesterday, how many people don't understand the primary process in this country.
Yeah.
Like, go look at
dude, you're not even willing to learn it.
Go look at my timeline yesterday. Like the people saying that he was democratically elected as the nominee of the party. No, he was not. Well, the people's vote don't matter. Finally, you got it right. The people's vote in the primary process means very little.
Yeah, how many times have we told you fans don't matter? Right? Same thing. It's just, I was surprised at how many people just were unwilling to step back for 2 seconds and look it up and say, oh yeah, actually, Joe was actually never officially made the nominee. It was just assumed he was going to be the nominee, like almost like auto bid nominee because he was the incumbent.
Much like Kamala Harris today. She's not the nominee.
Yeah.
And what has she said? I want to earn the nomination.
Yeah. That's what she should have said.
Exactly what she should be saying.
Yeah.
You can't possibly just take what your political leaders or your deities or whoever you look at them as your idols and take what they say on its face. You need to go and be exposed to other opinions. It's why if you're just somebody that watches Fox News or if you're just somebody that watches CNN, dude, I'm telling you, you're not getting the whole story. You're getting what they want you to take, which is one side of it. It is, if we learned anything from the Dominion voting scandal, it is that Fox News lies to you. It is that CNN lies to you. It is that MSNBC lies to you. So go and get your news across the board.
Yes.
Like you look at Lou Dobbs died over the weekend. And what was the main talking point about Lou Dobbs? Not the great career as a journalist he had, not all the work he did at CNN and Fox. Go read what they talked about with the election and Lou Dobbs. Look at Rudy Giuliani. Look at America's mayor and his legacy now. Look at Alex Jones and his Sandy Hook disaster. You can't take what people say at face value. Don't take what we say at face value. Go research it. Don't get on Twitter and show us who you all really are when you don't know the primary process and you're trying to argue about democratically elected, which you got from Mike Johnson, who's completely full of shit.
Yeah. Intentionally, I might add.
And doing it intentionally so that you'll get on Twitter and parrot democratically elected. If you're not willing to go out and get your information from multiple sources who are on different sides of the line, you're probably uninformed.
Yeah.
You're probably uninformed. Like, it's as plainly as I can say it. My disappointment is that we as people hate each other now based on how we vote.
Well, and I think it's the same thing, we see in college football, right? What do we do in college football? Oh, some guy who was dying 6 months ago said this, it must be true. I'm going to go die on that hill. And then a month later it comes out that, yeah, that was actually never going to happen.
Look at this list of sources that MAGA Boy puts up, and we wonder why you're always wrong and misinformed. You listen to, I think that's the Young Turks, Jimmy Dore, Russell Brand, Tucker, and Blaze TV, the Daily Wire, all conservative Republican talking outlets, all of them.
Yep.
All of the Young Turks. But you look at, if you're getting your opinion from Tucker Carlson, Fox News openly stated in court documents, he's an entertainer. He is not to be believed as a journalist. And then he went and sat with Vladimir Putin. And that's the guy that you're using as a source. You can't take what Tucker Carlson says seriously. I would tell you, Watch your mainstream news. Watch your Fox Newses. Watch your MSNBCs. Watch your CNNs. And then go fact check them. It sucks. It's arduous. It's a lot of work. But that's what we have to do to be informed. That's what you have to do. To be informed, you have to take what is being reported and you have to go and fact check it.
Yeah.
How does the primary actually work? Is it true that the Federal Election Commission cannot give Kamala Harris access to that money? As the Trump-appointed director says, no, it's not true. It's complete bullshit. She has full access to that money. By the way, her name is on all of those accounts. Is Mike Johnson correct when he says that laws were broken and votes were thrown out and invalidated? No, he's not. And he's the Speaker of the House. I'm warning you. If you're going to Russell Brand and Blaze TV, I don't even know if you're somebody, is that Glenn Beck still? If you're getting your news from Glenn Beck, if you're getting your news from Hannity, come on, guy.
Yeah.
You're telling us all we need to know.
Yeah.
Yes, Eric. Oh my God, bro, be better. That's what's crazy to me. That's what's crazy to me. You guys watch way too much of the mainstream media because the mainstream media, hey, guy, don't know how to tell you this. They're actually held accountable. So you have to take what they say with a grain of salt and then go fact check it. Did you learn nothing from the Dominion voting scandal? Did you learn nothing from the 2016 election cycle?
Yeah.
Did you learn nothing from the Atlanta voting scandal where Rudy Giuliani is trying to file bankruptcy and being declined because of the shit he said about election poll volunteers in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Did you learn nothing from that? You can't. The problem with guys like Tucker is who's fact-checking Tucker?
Nobody.
Who's holding Tucker Carlson, the Young Turks, Glenn Beck and the Blaze? Who's holding them to that higher standard of ethics and journalism? Nobody. They report to nobody. Nobody is holding them to that level.
You mean Tucker, the same guy that got booted out of Fox for all the lies he told on his show?
Which they talked about in court?
Oh, that guy.
I thought Tucker was going to do a new daily show every... And
They're not going to hold his feet to the fire on the non-compete.
Yeah, he's out of the non-compete. Oh, that hasn't happened yet.
Oh, because that's the non-compete still in effect.
I'm telling you, you guys go out, find information. If it resonates with you, go fact check it. Go learn about it. Go understand. Like this popular vote argument that happened Saturday on Twitter.
See, and here's the response. This is what MAGA guys do. So they're going to talk a bunch of junk, and then they're going to say, "Oh, we've moved on."
No, you haven't.
You haven't.
Donald Trump openly talks about the 2020 election being stolen from him. No facts. No evidence. Not a single lawsuit upheld.
Yeah. Come on.
You guys have not moved on from 2020. Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind?
It's okay to admit that you don't watch a diverse spectrum of news. It's fine.
All I'm asking people to do, even if and I hope it's not Tucker, but if you're getting your news from Tucker Carlson, or you're forming opinions based on what Tucker Carlson says or Mike Johnson, at least take the next step and say, well, Tucker said, or Mike Johnson said that there were going to be lawsuits and investigations because Joe Biden broke the law when he resigned. Or people calling it a coup. That was the best one on Sunday. Oh, it's a coup.
You guys would know, wouldn't you?
It's a coup. Joe Biden resigning from the race is a coup. A coup would be overthrowing an established government. How did that happen? A coup would be overthrowing an established process. How did that happen? We throw out words like coup, and then we get upset when people take shots at Donald Trump. We get upset when violence breaks out because of shit that people have said. That's what I'm saying. Go fact check it.
Yeah.
Go fact check it. Right? Like, I mean, and I agree with you. Clarence Thomas is unfit. He's unfit.
And there you go. The Secret Service director is resigning.
Oh, is she really? I don't think he had any choice. I really hope someday that we get to the bottom of what happened 2 weeks ago in Butler.
Yeah.
And I really hope, again.
God, was it only 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
So much has happened.
And I know, or I guess maybe 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
Because it's Monday.
Yeah.
No, it's Tuesday. Fuck off. Whatever day it is. I really hope we get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kimberly Cheeto resigns after barrage of criticism from security failures. Yeah, that's not. And look at that. There it is. Holy shit. A bipartisan panel will, in fact, investigate. Mike Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries agree. They are forming a bipartisan panel. Amen to that.
To investigate the assassination attempt.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
What it should be.
Exactly right.
What it should be.
Exactly right. Way to go. There's hope that we have level-headed people, because you didn't take a shot at a Republican that day. You took a shot at America. You took a shot at democracy. A guy died exercising his rights to free speech and democracy. And he was murdered for it. We need to know how and why.
Yeah.
There you go. We have to go.
Good talk. Good talk.
No, I'm glad to see, A, she resigned, and B, that there's going to be a bipartisan panel. That's great news. That's great news. Always appreciate the conversation. See, it doesn't have to be full of vitriol. We can exchange ideas without you being stupid and us being assholes. Well, we're still assholes.
Yeah, you know.
You get what I'm saying. The Monty Show is always presented by The Advocates, theadvocates.com. Still working for the school kids. Our last Giving Friday is this Friday for the school kids. Donate now. Advocates on Venmo. Until tomorrow, say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.